On the campus boulevard, the sunlight broke into golden mottled colors, shining on Shen Qingqing's low-hanging bangs. She held her school bag in her arms, and her steps were as light and quick as drizzle. She always walked close to the edge, as if she would be swallowed up by the noisy wave accidentally. Surrounded by students from classes 2 and 3 of high school, they were laughing and joking in small groups. The air was filled with the smell of dust from the playground and the faint scent of cherry blossoms in the hair of the girls. "Hey, look at Shen Qingqing, he's sneaking around again, like a mouse." Chen Feng, a boy in the back row, said a moderate voice, which just happened to float into her ears, causing a few snickers. Shen Qingqing's shoulders shrank slightly, and his fingers tightened on the strap of his school bag, his knuckles turning white. She didn't raise her head, but just quickened her pace. Her heart felt like she was being pricked with needles. Why was it like this every time? She didn't avoid everyone on purpose, she was just speechless. When the school bell rang with relief, she was the first to rush out of the classroom and run towards the school gate. The setting sun lengthened her shadow, dragging it alone on the asphalt road. In the alley in front of his house, Xiaobai was already waiting there. The golden retriever puppy, with its furry body shining with warm yellow light in the dusk, pounced on her as soon as it saw her, put its front paws on her knees, and licked the back of her hand warmly with its pink tongue. The moist touch, with a faint milky scent, instantly melted her coldness from the day. "Xiaobai, you always wait for me, right?" Shen Qingqing squatted down, gently hugged its soft neck, and buried his face into the warm neck. The street lights turned on, and the orange halo enveloped them. Xiaobai's tail flicked, as if to say, "Master, I will always be here." Her eyes were slightly moist, which was her only solace. In this campus full of club posters and debate championship banners, she was like a transparent person. The next day, the parent-teacher meeting came like a storm. In the conference room, the air was as stuffy as a steamer, mixed with the smell of parents' perfume and the smell of old wooden tables. Teacher Fu Han was sitting in the main seat. His tall and thin figure was like an iron ruler, and his eyes were so sharp that they could cut through people's hearts. He opened Shen Qingqing's transcript and frowned. Shen Qingqing's grades are quite satisfactory, but the problem lies in social interaction. Fu Han's voice was low and stern, like the cold wind on a winter night. She hardly spoke in class and always walked with her head lowered. Her classmates said she was like a shadow and never participated in club activities. This school emphasizes all-round development, and the debate club is the best way to exercise self-confidence. I suggest she sign up immediately. Shen Qingqing's mother, a tired supermarket cashier, turned pale and the tissue in her hand was balled up. "Teacher, she is like this at home. She only plays with Xiaobai. We are worried that she will not be able to find friends when she grows up." Dad nodded and patted the table with his rough palm. "Yes, Qingqing, you have to try. How about the debating club? Teacher Fu said it can make you brave." Outside the door of the conference room, Shen Qingqing stood against the wall, listening to the conversation inside, feeling as if he was falling into an ice cave. Solitary? Shadow? Her nails dug into her palms, causing a dull pain. Why does everyone think she is abnormal? She's just not good at that kind of excitement. Fu Han's voice sounded again. "How will you know if you don't try? The club will recruit new members next week, and she must come." The parents said in unison, "Okay, let's persuade her." On the way home, the night breeze was mixed with the smoke of fireworks from the roadside barbecue stalls, and Shen Qingqing's footsteps were heavy. Xiaobai greeted her at the door as usual, but noticed something strange about her. It tilted its head to look at her, and then gently moved into her arms, its warm body pressed against her legs, and it made a low purring sound, as if to comfort. "Master, don't be afraid, I'm here." That night, Shen Qingqing lay on the bed and stared at the cracks in the ceiling. Xiaobai's head rested on her arm, his breathing even and warm. She thought of those shiny club posters on campus. The championship trophy of the debate club was shining in the sun, the students were bickering on the stage, and the audience was applauding. It was a world she could never reach. But the eyes of her parents and the severity of teacher Fu Han made her breathless. Finally, she gritted her teeth and sat up, grabbed her phone, typed Shen Qingqing on the club registration form, and pressed send. Fingers tremble, heart beats like a drum. Just try it once, in order not to disappoint them. On the day of recruitment, there was a crowd outside the debate club classroom. The air was filled with the smell of chalk dust and youthful sweat, and the walls were covered with past debate questions. Is campus love a blessing or a curse? Shen Qingqing took a deep breath and opened the door. It was very lively inside, with students forming a circle and discussing passionately. Her eyes were unconsciously attracted to a figure in front of her, Li Xiu, the debate captain, tall and handsome, with the sleeves of his school uniform rolled up to his elbows, revealing his strong forearms. He stood in front of the blackboard, his voice clear and powerful. The affirmative believes that associations can change people. Who can refute it? At that moment, Shen Qingqing's heart skipped a beat. Li Xiu turned his head, and the sunlight shone on the side of his face from the window, outlining the perfect outline. His eyes were as deep as the night sky, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised when he smiled, making her cheeks feel hot. How come? It's so beautiful. The feeling of secret love came to her like a tide, and her hands involuntarily clenched the corners of her clothes. The girl next to her, Luo Li, the lively girl with her ponytail flying up, suddenly turned her head and stared at her with wide eyes. "Hey, newcomer? Wow, you are Shen Qingqing, right? Come on, sit next to me." Luo Li's enthusiasm was like a torch. Shen Qingqing nodded awkwardly and squeezed into the circle. Chen Feng was also there. The boy who usually laughed at her was slapping the table with enthusiasm at this moment. "Captain, I agree. The club has turned me from the tail of a crane to the king of confidence." Everyone laughed, and Li Xiu's eyes swept across the crowd and stopped on her for a second unintentionally. Her heartbeat quickened, she lowered her head and pretended to look at the floor, her ears as red as ripe apples. At this moment, the classroom door was pushed open with a bang, and teacher Fu Han strode in. The sound of his leather shoes hitting the floor was like a war drum, his face was ashen, and his eyes were as sharp as a knife as he scanned the whole place. "Recruitment is over. Everyone, prepare for the preliminary test." His voice boomed, and the students were silent for a moment. Luo Li whispered, "It's over, the teacher is angry." Chen Feng's face turned pale and he swallowed. "What is Teacher Fu going to do? I heard that the preliminary test is very tough, and newcomers can never pass the first level." Li Xiu stood up straight and frowned slightly, but remained calm. "Teacher, what are the rules?" Fu Han laughed and looked directly at Shen Qingqing. "Newcomers, especially you, Shen Qingqing. Today you will go on stage and refute the right side. The topic: introverts are not suitable for debate. Do you dare?" The whole place was dead silent. Luo Li's mouth opened in an O shape, and she stared at Shen Qingqing with wide eyes, her voice trembling. "Qingqing, can you?" Chen Feng rubbed his eyes, thinking he had made a mistake. "She? That guy with his head down? Ha ha, now there's something interesting to watch." Li Xiu's eyes flashed with surprise, then became curious, staring at her. Shen Qingqing's head was buzzing and his palms were covered in cold sweat. "Xiaobai is not here, she is alone and helpless. On stage? Refutation? She can't even speak easily. Fu Han's voice was like thunder again. Why, you just signed up and then dropped out. Do you remember what I said at the parent-teacher meeting? You can't get in. The air in the classroom solidified, and every pair of eyes was like a spotlight, burning her. Shen Qingqing's legs were as soft as cotton, and she screamed in her heart, I regret it. But if you back down, your parents' disappointment, Fu Han's ridicule, classmates' snickers, everything will come back doubled. She took a deep breath and stood up slowly. Luo Li gasped, Oh my God, is she really going to do it? Chen Feng's laughter stuck in his throat and his eyes widened. Li Xiu's pupils dilated slightly, and the corners of his mouth curled up with a trace of expectation. Shen Qingqing walked towards the stage step by step, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the silence like his heartbeat. Fu Han's stern voice still echoed in her ears. What will she face next moment? The whole audience held their breath, waiting for the collapse of the shadow girl, or a miracle. Hurry up, Shen Qingqing. Don't waste everyone's time. Fu Han's voice was as low as thunder, causing a slight movement of tables and chairs. Luo Li's ponytail froze in the air, her fingers unconsciously tightened the hem of her skirt, her eyes widened, and her lips trembled slightly. Qingqing, come on, don't panic. Chen Feng leaned on the back of the chair, crossed his arms across his chest, and raised a malicious arc at the corner of his mouth, whispering in her ears, the devil with a low head is on stage? This is ridiculous. If she can say 3 sentences, I will lose. Li Xiu's brows furrowed slightly, and he tapped his fingers lightly on the table. The rhythm was steady but with a hint of nervousness. His eyes followed her figure, and imperceptible waves flashed in his pupils. Shen Qingqing stood on the podium, her spotlight-like gaze piercing her like needles. She pressed her palms on the edge of the podium, her knuckles turning white from the exertion. My heart was beating wildly, as if it was about to burst out of my chest. The disappointed looks from the parent-teacher conference, Xiaobai's warm licks, and the rough palms of my parents flashed through my mind. She opened her mouth, but her voice was stuck in her throat, and she could only make a breathy sound as thin as the buzz of mosquitoes. The whole audience burst into low laughter, and Chen Feng's shoulders shook. Ha ha, look, I'll just say it. Luo Li bit her lower lip, her face turned pale, and she secretly clenched her fists to pray for her. Li Xiu leaned forward slightly, and the curiosity in his eyes turned to pity. Shen Qingqing's footsteps made tiny echoes on the wooden floor. Every step was like stepping on the apex of her heart. The air in the classroom condensed into a cold gel and wrapped around her throat. The pungent smell of chalk dust mixed with the rapid breathing of her classmates, and the rustling of sycamore leaves outside the window sounded like countless whispers mocking her timidity. Teacher Fu Han crossed his arms across his chest, and his livid face cast a shadow under the fluorescent lamp. His eyes were locked on her like a hawk, and the corners of his mouth were slightly lowered, as if he had foreseen her defeat. Despair surged like a tide, and Shen Qingqing's vision blurred. She recalled the way Xiaobai tilted his head, and those watery eyes seemed to say, Master, you can do it. Taking a deep breath, she raised her head suddenly, her bangs sliding down her forehead, revealing her clear eyes that were usually hidden. Introverts are not suitable for debating? Her voice trembled like a leaf falling in the wind at first, but suddenly stabilized, with a stubborn edge. Wrong. Introverts are the most suitable. Because we don't like to talk nonsense, every sentence is like a knife, stabbing the vital point accurately. The classroom fell silent for a moment. Chen Feng's laughter stopped suddenly. His mouth opened wide, his eyes were as wide as copper bells, and he turned to the classmate next to him with a stiff neck. Did you hear? What did she say? Luo Li covered her mouth with both hands, gasped, and her ponytail swung around in excitement. Oh my God, Qingqing. You are great. Fu Han's iron arms relaxed slightly, his brows slowly relaxed, and a hint of surprise flashed in his sharp eyes. Li Xiu's fingers stopped tapping, he straightened up, the corners of his mouth unconsciously raised, his deep eyes lit up like stars, and he stared at her. Continue. Shen Qingqing's chest rose and fell, and beads of sweat slid down the back of his neck, bringing a slight chill. She gripped the desk and her voice gradually became smoother. It is said that introverts lack self-confidence? That is prejudice. How many great speakers in history, such as Einstein, were introverts but changed the world? They listened more, thought deeply, and were bombs as soon as they opened their mouths. Unlike extroverts, who are full of bombast but empty. Her gestures drew sharp arcs, and the air in the classroom seemed to be torn by her words. The whispers of the classmates turned into gasps, and several girls exchanged glances and murmured, "She has changed?" Fu Han suddenly raised his hand, and applause sounded, which was astonishing. The audience followed, and applause surged like waves. Luo Li was the first to jump up and screamed, "Qingqing! You are a genius!" Chen Feng's face turned red to the roots of his ears. He rubbed his eyes and murmured to himself, "Impossible. Why is that guy with his head bowed so suddenly?" Li Xiu's applause was the loudest. He stood up, his eyes full of approval, and the sun shone on his handsome profile, outlining a heart-stirring outline. Shen Qingqing's cheeks were as hot as fire. She lowered her head and gasped, and an unprecedented warmth surged in her heart. She did it. Passed. Fu Han's voice was unusually gentle. He turned around and wrote, "Shen Qingqing officially joins the company," on the blackboard. The newbie trial is over, everyone applauds. Cheers exploded, and chalk dust flew in the lights like fireworks of celebration. After the recruitment was over, the sun was setting outside the classroom, the orange light filled the corridor, and the air was filled with the sweet aroma of candied haws from a roadside stall. Luo Li was the first to rush forward, holding Shen Qingqing's arm, her eyes sparkling. "Qingqing! You were so handsome just now. Come, be my best friend." She took out 3 thin cloth bracelets from her school bag. The blue ribbon had growing together, embroidered with gold thread, and it felt as soft as a cloud. "This is the bracelet for Chen Feng and I. Now add you. Wear it to symbolize our iron triangle." Chen Feng scratched his head in embarrassment. The sarcasm just now disappeared. He came closer and said in a passionate voice, "Hey, Shen Qingqing, no, lower your head, Qingqing. I was wrong just now, you are awesome. Come on, exchange." His fingers trembled slightly, and he handed over the bracelet, with a rare blush of admiration on his face. Shen Qingqing's heart felt warm, and she stretched out her hand. The 3 people's bracelets were intertwined, and the cloth made a subtle rustling sound. Luo Li pulled hard. "From now on, let's grow together. See you in the debate arena." Chen Feng nodded vigorously, "Yes. Whoever bullies you, I will be the first to beat him up." Shen Qingqing's eyes were slightly hot, and she nodded, "Thank you, thank you." On the way home, twilight shrouded the alleys like a gauze, and Xiaobai's cry came from the door, and he was so excited that his tail swung and made a crackling sound. It jumped into her arms, put its front paws on its knees, and licked the back of her hand warmly with its pink tongue. The scent of milk filled her nostrils. Shen Qingqing squatted down and stroked its golden hair. "Xiaobai, I'm on stage today. I said a lot." Everyone applauded, and Li Xiu, he looked at me and smiled. Xiaobai tilted his head and whined, and his tail wagged harder, as if to say, "Master is the best." She hugged it tightly, and the afterglow of the setting sun reflected on its furry body, as warm as a hug. During the following club training, the classroom was brightly lit and the air was filled with the smell of coffee and instant noodles. Li Xiu stood in front of the blackboard, his sleeves rolled up to reveal his strong forearms. His voice was as clear as a stream. "Today I will practice my rebuttal skills. Positive. Campus love is a waste of time. Who's coming?" His eyes swept across the crowd and inadvertently stopped on Shen Qingqing, which made her heart beat like a deer and her cheeks turned red instantly. She lowered her head and bit her lip, only daring to watch and observe the rhythm of the opening and closing of his lips, her fingers unconsciously tightening the bracelet. Luo Li poked her arm and whispered encouragement, "Qingqing, come on. You are so strong in the preliminary round, try a small practice." Chen Feng also nodded, "Yes, give it a shot." Shen Qingqing hesitated, and finally raised her hand, her voice still trembling, "Love is not a waste. It is motivation, making people study harder." After finishing the words, Chen Feng said for the first time. Someone slapped the table, "Pa." "That's right." His eyes widened, full of surprise. Luo Li screamed and hugged her, "Qingqing, you are making rapid progress." Li Xiu smiled and nodded, "Yes, say more next time." His praise was like honey, and Shen Qingqing's heart rippled, and the throbbing of secret love was deeper, but she did not dare to look directly into his eyes. Suddenly, the door opened with a bang, and Fu Han strode in, his leather shoes hitting the floor like a war drum. His eyes swept across the audience, as cold as frost. "Training is over. Next week's confrontation practice, Shen Qingqing, you and Li Xiu will fight against me." The whole audience gasped. Luo Li opened her mouth in an O shape and covered her chest with her hands. "Team up with the captain? Qingqing, you're going to fly." Chen Feng rubbed his eyes and murmured, "Her? With Li Xiu? Is Teacher Fu crazy?" Li Xiu turned to look at her, his eyes flashed with interest, and the corners of his mouth raised slightly, looking forward to cooperation. "Shen Qingqing." Shen Qingqing's head was buzzing, his heartbeat was thundering, and his palms were sweating. Team up with Li Xiu? Would he be disappointed if his stuttering revealed his introverted nature? The lights in the classroom were dazzling, and she lowered her head to ring her bracelets. She was at war with herself. Is this an opportunity or a disaster? At night, the moonlight shone like mercury in the bedroom, and Xiaobai curled up at her feet, his warm breath touching her ankles. Shen Qingqing stared at the ceiling and murmured, "Xiaobai, we will practice sparring tomorrow. I'm afraid I won't be able to speak. Will Li Xiu laugh at me?" Xiaobai suddenly stood up, licking the back of her hand with his pink tongue, moist and tender, staring at her with bright eyes, flicking his tail, as if whispering, "Master, I'm here, be brave." She ran her fingers through its fur, feeling warmth surge in her chest. The night wind outside the window carries the fragrance of osmanthus. How will the awkward sparring unfold tomorrow? Li Xiu's expectant eyes, Fu Han's sternness, Luo Li's cheers, everything was like a web, tightly entwining her youth. Shen Qingqing's legs felt like lead. Every step he took to climb up to the podium felt like stepping on cotton. His palms were sweaty and slippery. The iron triangle bracelet flashed slightly under the light, and the blue ribbon strangled his wrists so hot. Li Xiu stood beside her, his tall figure casting a warm shadow. He whispered, "Relax, just like you told me." His breath, with the coolness of mint toothpaste, brushed against the shell of her ear, making her cheeks instantly turn red and her heart pounding like a deer. But the eyes of the audience were raining down like arrows. Luo Li bit her lip and clenched her fists in the front row. Chen Feng held his head in his hands and murmured, "Qingqing, hold on." The corners of Fu Han's mouth turned down slightly, as if he had smelled the sour stench of failure. The air in the classroom was like boiled glue, sticky and stuffy. The bitter smell of instant coffee was mixed with the dust of eraser chips. The muffled sound of a basketball hitting the ground came from the playground outside the window, pounding like a heartbeat counting down. Teacher Fu Han's tall and thin figure stood on the podium like an iron tower. The beat of his leather shoes on the floor was like a war drum. His arms were folded across his chest, and his cold eyes swept across the audience. "Let's start. Zhengfang, campus love is a boost to growth. Shen Qingqing, you start first." She opened her mouth, but her voice was stuck in her throat. Campus love is. Her mind was as blank as a blank sheet of paper. The disappointed eyes at the parent-teacher meeting, Xiaobai's tilted head, and Li Xiu's expectations were all a mess. Beads of sweat rolled down his spine, chilling to the bone. Whispers erupted in the audience, and the boys in the back row chuckled, "It's stuck again, the duck-headed devil really can't hold on." Luo Li's ponytail flicked, and she stamped her feet anxiously. "Qingqing." Chen Feng hit the table with his fist, making a muffled sound. "Fuck." Li Xiu suddenly leaned forward and whispered like a spring breeze, "Remember the data, introverts' learning scores increase by 20% after falling in love. Go from there." His fingers touched the back of her hand lightly, and warmth flowed through her hand. She inhaled sharply and said in her voice, "Falling makes introverts confident. The data shows that the learning scores of students in love increase by 20%. When the words fell to the ground, the classroom fell silent, and Li Xiu nodded with a smile, his eyes as bright as stars. But Fu Han slammed the desk, and there was a loud bang that caused the chalk dust to fall like an avalanche. His face was livid, and his voice exploded like a firecracker. "Stop. Li Xiu, what are you doing?" Gentle reminder? This is a debate, not a coaxing. Shen Qingqing, you are dragging down the team, forgetting your words and asking the captain to save you? If you are an introvert, go back and practice basic skills. The whole audience gasped. Luo Li's eyes widened, lips trembled. "Teacher. Qingqing has worked very hard." Chen Feng stood up suddenly, his chair scratching the ground. "Teacher Fu, she was awesome in the first round, but this time she is just nervous." Fu Han glared at him. Chen Feng shrank his neck, sat down and murmured, "Damn, it's too cruel." The practice ended hastily, the sunset filled the corridor like blood, and the sweet smell of candied haws mixed with the salt of her tears. Luo Li was the first to rush over, hugging her shoulders, and her ponytail swept her cheeks and itched. "Qingqing, don't cry. The teacher is so tough, he praised you last time." Chen Feng followed and patted her back with a big warm hand, so hard that she coughed. "Yes. Fu Han, that old man, scold yourself before scolding others. We, the iron triangle, with bright bracelets, let's practice together to blow him up." He raised his hand and patted her on the back. Lifting her wrists, the 3 bracelets shone in the afterglow, and the golden threads grew together, were like fluorescent glare. Luo Li tightened the hands of the 3 of them, intertwined 3 times, and the cloth rustled. "Qingqing, you are the best. Let's fight tomorrow." Shen Qingqing sobbed and nodded, tears dripped on the bracelets, moistening the ribbon, and a warm current surged in her heart, but she was still like a tide of depression. On the way home, the alleys were filled with dusk mist, and Xiaobai's cry burst through the cracks in the door like salvation. It jumped out, its golden fur shimmering under the street lamp, its front paws resting on its knees, its pink tongue hotly licking her tears, the fragrance of milk assaulting its nostrils, and its tail making a slapping sound. Shen Qingqing squatted down, hugged its furry body, and choked with sobs. Xiaobai, I failed again, dragging Li Xiu down. The teacher said I'm embarrassed. Xiaobai whimpered, suddenly let go, turned around and picked up a blue rubber toy with wet bones, shook his head and tail, and stared at her with watery eyes, as if to say, play, master. It nibbled on the toy, making a squeaking sound, and humped her knees, its hot breath hitting her ankles. Shen Qingqing laughed through tears, took the toy and threw it out. Xiaobai swooped after it, bit it, turned back to offer the treasure, and waggled his tail into a fan. She laughed out loud, her chest loosening. Xiaobai, it's great to have you. I can't give up, I have to work hard for the Iron Triangle and Li Xiu. Shen Qingqing's vision was blurred and tears welled up in her eyes. She lowered her head and twisted her bracelets, and the blue ribbon made red marks, like her heart being torn apart. Drag Li Xiu down? She bit her lip, the taste of blood spreading on her tongue, and stumbled off the stage, her steps as frivolous as stepping on clouds. Li Xiu stretched out his hand to help, but was stopped by Fu Han's eyes. He frowned and clenched his fists slightly. Teacher, she has potential. Fu Han snorted. Potential? Before the inter-school competition next week, don't be embarrassed if you can't practice well. The whole place was dead silent, and the air was like lead. Shen Qingqing blushed to the roots of her ears, her heart beating like a drum. Li Xiu, your dog is so cute. Li Xiu squatted down and separated the two dogs, and chuckled. Adu, you are 2 years old. An introverted dog, he always hides behind me, and he doesn't stick to him until I walk with him every day. He stroked Corgi. Mao, with eyes as gentle as water, looked up at her. Like you, the fierceness in the preliminary competition is hidden. It's normal to forget the words today, and I got stuck for the first time. Teacher Fu scolded me for half an hour. His voice was low and magnetic, and the moonlight outlined his outline, making her breathing irregular. Xiaobai licked Adu, and the two dogs sat side by side, wagging their tails together. Li Xiu stood up and looked at her bracelet. Iron Triangle? Yes, it's good to have a partner. Shen Qingqing nodded, courage surged. Thank you for reminding me. I will work hard and not drag you down. He smiled, reached out and touched her shoulder lightly, and electricity passed through, looking forward to it. Good night, let's work together. The figure melted into the night mist, the lake in her heart rippled, and the secret love grew like a vine. He also loves dogs, we have something in common. Hope ignites like a spark. The next day in the club, the classroom lights were dazzling and the smell of coffee was stronger. Fu Han was already waiting, and the blackboard was filled with arguments like swords. Keep practicing. Zhengfang, under the pressure of campus, introverts need friendship support. Li Xiu nodded to tell her to go ahead. She took a deep breath and was about to speak when she heard a whisper from the back row. I heard that Li Xiu hated introverted girls. His previous teammates were too boring, so he dumped them. Yes, handsome guys want lively girls. The words were like ice needles piercing her heart. Shen Qingqing's mind buzzed, and his eyes were locked on Li Xiu. His brows were slightly furrowed, and he was looking at her. His eyes seemed to be disgusting. Her heart sank, and her voice stuck. Introverts. The whole place was silent again. She lowered her head in panic, turned around and wanted to escape. I'm going to the bathroom. The door slammed shut, footsteps stomped down the corridor, and tears came to my eyes. Chen Feng chased after her, shouting passionately, Qingqing. Wait. He blocked the road while panting, and pressed her shoulder with his big hand. Don't listen to those gossips. Li Xiu is not too introverted. He said last week that you had sharp eyes in the preliminary round, like a master of concealment. That former teammate resigned on his own, and it's not you who is boring. Shen Qingqing said. Tez, eyes red and swollen, really? Chen Feng nodded vigorously, and his bracelet flashed, iron triangle guarantee. Besides, the inter-school debate competition will start next week, and the opponent is the #1 middle school in the city. Teacher Fu said that there is a shortage of new people. Who will go if you don't go? Li Xiu personally called your name. She was stunned, and her heartbeat started again. Inter-school competition? Play. Fu Han's thunderous voice came from the classroom. Where is Shen Qingqing? Come back quickly. Chen Feng held her hand. Let's go. Prove it to them. As he pushed the door in, the whole audience was flooded with eyes. Li Xiu's eyes were as deep as the sea, and the corner of his mouth was slightly raised, not in disgust, but in expectation. Luo Li screamed, Qingqing is back. Fu Han raised his eyebrows. Go on, talk. Shen Qingqing gritted her teeth and stood on the podium. Her bracelet tightened like an anchor, and her heart turned to despair. She raised her head sharply and her voice erupted like a volcano. That's wrong. Under the pressure of campus, introverts are more independent. They don't need friendship and charity. They are like lone wolves and become famous instantly. Statistics: introverted leaders account for 40%, because they think deeply, not just talk. Late at night, the moonlight shines like silver frost on the alleys, and the fragrance of osmanthus is strong and tangy. Shen Qingqing takes Xiaobai for a walk to eat. The cool breeze blew across her face, and the bracelet felt cool against her wrist. She murmured, I'll practice again tomorrow. I can't let everyone down. Suddenly, the figure opposite shook, Li Xiu. He also had a dog on his leash, a black and white corgi with short legs that bobbed its head and a spiral tail. Li Xiu was stunned, his handsome face softened under the moonlight, and the smell of mint wafted over him. Shen Qingqing? Walking the dog so late? Xiaobai jumped on him excitedly, and Corgi yelled back. The two dogs fought and rolled into a ball, making a rustling sound as the fur hit each other. The classroom was dead silent. Chen Feng's mouth opened as wide as a hole, his eyes bulged, and he slapped his thigh. Pa! Awesome! This is Qingqing. Luo Li jumped up, her ponytail flying, and screamed, reversal. Genius! Fu Han's iron arm loosened, his eyes flashed with shock, and he murmured, this reversal. Li Xiu straightened up, and the applause sounded like thunder, the loudest. His eyes locked on her, and his pupils were on fire. Perfect! The positive side has won this round. The audience burst into applause, chalk dust flew like fireworks at a celebration, and the classmates' whispers turned into admiration. She is the queen of debate. The applause in the classroom faded away like a tide, and the chalk dust was still floating in the air, like the embers of fireworks. The bitterness of the coffee mixed with the saltiness of sweat was so pungent that it made people breathless. Shen Qingqing slid down from the podium, stepping on the clouds with every step. The iron triangle bracelet jingled softly under the light, and the blue ribbon stretched around her wrist so that it felt slightly hot. The fire in her heart was still burning. Li Xiu's eyes followed him like a heat wave. He came closer, and the cool smell of mint toothpaste hit his face. He raised the corner of his mouth and said, Shen Qingqing, this is your turn. Perfect. His voice was low, and his eyes were locked on her, as if to drill into her heart. Her cheeks were as hot as fire, and the vine of secret love grew wildly, but suddenly seeing Luo Li rushing towards her, her ponytail flicked out, she hugged Li Xiu's arm and said coquettishly, Captain. Qingqing's reversal, can you give me full marks? Let's go celebrate and eat candied haws of sugar haws. Li Xiu smiled and rubbed her ponytail. What a good idea, lively ghost. Luo Li giggled. The two of them were side by side, as close as old acquaintances. Shen Qingqing's heart felt like it was falling into an ice cave. The laughter was like needle pricks, and the whispers in the back row started again. Look, Li Xiu loves an outgoing hot girl like Luo Li. No matter how fierce Shen Qingqing is, she can't compare to her vitality. Yes, the reason my introverted teammates were dumped in the previous job was because they were bored. The words were like a poisonous snake spitting messages, drilling into the eardrums. She lowered her head, her vision blurred, and the words growing together on the bracelet suddenly dazzled her eyes. Li Xiu glanced at her, but she felt that the heat was an illusion. What he admired was Luo Li's domineering attitude, right? She bit her lip, the smell of blood spread, and murmured, I will leave first. She turned and fled from the classroom, her footsteps chaotic like leaves falling in the wind, and the door slammed shut, causing the lights in the corridor to buzz. The club practice lasted for 2 days, and the air in the classroom became even stuffier. The tapping of Fu Han's leather shoes was like a drumbeat, and the arguments on the blackboard were as dense as an iron net. Shen Qingqing deliberately sat in the back row to avoid Li Xiu's eyes. Whenever he called his name, she lowered her head and pretended to drink water. Her palms under the bracelet were slippery with sweat. In the first round, she should have started sharply, but Luo Li's ponytail and Li Xiu's smile flashed in her mind, and her voice got stuck. On the other hand, campus love will. The audience burst into snickers, and the boys in the back row whispered, You lowered your head again. Is the reversal a fluke? Luo Li frowned and pulled her sleeve. Qing, what's wrong with you? Li Xiu frowned slightly and wanted to speak, but Fu Han slammed the desk with a loud bang. Shen Qingqing. Focus. In the inter-school competition against the #1 middle school in the city, you will get points when you play in this state. Her face turned pale, and she staggered off the stage, sweat dripping down the tip of her nose and hitting the ground like tears. The second round was even worse. She wanted to cut the data to counterattack, but she caught a glimpse of Li Xiu handing water to Luo Li. His gentle action was like a knife twisting her heart. Her voice trembled. The data is invalid. Her head went blank, and Fu Hanti's face turned even darker. Stop. Is this the newbie? Li Xiu, take her to practice alone, otherwise there is no chance of playing. The whole audience gasped. Chen Feng hit the table with his fist, and the muffled sound echoed. Old master, Qingqing was still in bad shape yesterday, she's just in bad shape today. Luo Li's eyes widened and she flicked her ponytail. Yes, she works really hard. Li Xiu nodded, looking worried, but she saw it as pity, turned and rushed out, tears streaming from her eyes. Why? She had obviously turned around, so why did she collapse when she saw him and Luo Li? Self-esteem is like shattered glass, and the pressure of inter-school competitions is overwhelming. City #1 Middle School is a legendary strong school. I heard that their captain is good at eloquence and never loses to the newcomers. Back in the alleys, the setting sun stretches out its shadows like whips, and the sweet-scented osmanthus is so rich that it makes you sick. Xiaobai jumped out of the door, her golden fur shimmering in the afterglow, her front paws slapped her knees, the hot touch was like a drumbeat, her pink tongue licked the tears, the fragrance of milk hit her nose, and her tail whipped out and whistled in the wind. Shen Qingqing squatted down, hugged her furry body tightly, and choked with sobs. Xiaobai, am I not worthy? Li Xiu likes Luo Li's kind. I always make mistakes and drag everyone down. Xiaobai whimpered and did not let go of his paws. Instead, he patted her cheeks with his front paws, and pressed her eyelids with the wet and hot flesh pads, as if to say, Don't cry, face it. It turned around and picked up the blue bone toy, shook its head and arched its knees, stared at it with watery eyes, and urged it with squeaking and chewing sounds. She laughed through her tears and threw the toy. Xiaobai swooped down, snapped it in his teeth, turned back to offer the treasure, and waggled his tail into a golden fan. The lump in her chest was loose, and she murmured, "Xiaobai, what do you think I should do?" "Secret love, it hurts." The night breeze was cool, and the bracelet felt cool against her wrist. She decided to avoid him, focus on training, and stop humiliating herself. During lunch break the next day, under the thick shade of the parasol trees beside the playground, Li suddenly jumped out, grabbed her arm and dragged her into the women's restroom. The door lock clicked, and her ponytail flicked in front of the mirror. "Qingqing. Why are you hiding from Li Xiu? The club has made mistakes for 2 days, and her eyes are always red. Say. Do you like him?" Shen Qingqing, her face was red, her heartbeat was beating like a deer, and her eyes were averted. "No, no. He likes outgoing girls, like you." Li's eyes widened, her ponytail stiffened, and then she laughed loudly, her voice echoing on the tiles. "Ha ha. Who said that? Gossip. Li Xiu privately messaged me last week, saying that you are innocent and persistent. It's like a hidden gem, unlike those flashy girls. His former teammate was so bored that he resigned, and it had nothing to do with you." She pinched Shen Qingqing's cheek hard, her soft flesh was warm. "His eyes are always chasing you, idiot. He will kiss you during the inter-school game, understand?" Shen Qingqing was stunned, tears gushing, but moist with joy. "Really?" Li nodded, tightened the bracelet, and made a rustling sound with 3 intertwined rings. "Iron triangle promise. Confess your feelings. If you don't confess in youth, you will regret it for the rest of your life." The lake in her heart was rippling, and the misunderstanding was loosened. She wiped her tears and smiled. "Well, I'll give it a try." In front of the club in the afternoon, Chen Feng rushed in with enthusiasm, his back dripping with sweat. He held 3 bags of snacks in his hand, and the crispy potato chips hit his nostrils. "Iron triangle. I heard that Qingqing is in poor condition, so I will organize a small trip. Carnival in the park, strengthen bonds, and replenish demons before the inter-school competition." Li screamed and jumped, like, "Let's go." Shen Qingqing hesitated. Chen Feng patted her shoulder with a big hand, so hard that she coughed. "No ink marks. The bracelets are bright and bright, let's grow together, understand?" The 3 of them rushed out of the school gate, and the bus swayed for half an hour before arriving at the suburban park. The green waves rolled, the lake was dazzlingly blue, the aroma of roasted corn filled the air, and the children screamed and chased the kites, with the sound of strings snapping and snapping. On the lawn of the park, Chen Feng took off his shoes and threw the frisbee. The plastic disc whirled and screamed, "Catch!" Li swooped down, her ponytail flying, and grabbed the ball with a snap. She threw it back even harder, and the disc passed by her ears. Shen Qingqing smiled broadly, jumped up and gritted her teeth, sweat splashed, and grass clippings tickled her hair. Chen Feng suddenly stopped, gasped, and sat on the ground, holding up his bracelet. "Tell me a story. How did this iron triangle come about?" Li swept the grass with her ponytail and giggled. "Me first. In the physical test last year, I ran last, and my legs were as soft as noodles. You pulled me across the line, and the bracelet was used as a reward, a blue ribbon. It's my mother's old silk scarf." Chen Feng hit the ground with his fist, making a muffled sound. "What about me? I lost badly in the basketball game, and my father called me a waste. You came to the alley in the middle of the night, roasted sweet potatoes were delicious, and weaved golden threads while eating, growing together. I burst into tears. His eyes turned to Shen Qingqing, she lowering his head, his bracelets shone golden. At the parent-teacher meeting, you blocked my parents' questioning and dragged me into the club, saying that I'm an introvert. That night, Xiaobai licked his tears, and the three of you put your bracelets on my wrists, squeezing me warmly. After saying this, the eyes of the three of them were wet. Luo Li hugged me, and Chen Feng covered me with his big hands. On the top, the iron triangle overlaps, the ribbon rubs against the sand, and the sun shines like gold dust. Never leave. Passers-by in the distance glared and whispered, those three people, so iron. I am so envious. They laughed and chased, the frisbee whizzed, sweat mixed with mud, and their friendship was like a lake full of water. At the end of the trip, the sunset dyed the lake red. Chen Feng wiped his sweat. The club will break out tomorrow. Luo Li nodded, Shen Qingqing was satisfied, and his back stretched. Suddenly, footsteps approached, Li Xiu. He stopped riding a bicycle, his tall figure backlit like a god. A Du corgi followed with short legs and a spiral tail. What a coincidence. A Du was walking in the park and I saw you guys having fun. Chen Feng whistled, Captain is here to join in the fun? Luo Li blinked, join. Li Xiu shook his head and locked eyes. Shen Qingqing, the coolness of mint came to her. It's night, I'll take you home, along the way. Her heart beat wildly, she blushed and nodded, the three of them waved goodbye. She sat on the back seat of Li Xiu's bicycle, the wind blew by her ears, the hem of her skirt was flying. A Du led the way, shaking his head with short legs, and Xiaobai's shouts were faintly heard in the alley. When they arrived at the door, Xiaobai rushed out wildly. The golden retriever bumped into a Du. The two dogs rolled into pom-poms, licking their noses and touching each other. The smell of milk mixed with corgi oil hit their nostrils. Li Xiu squatted apart and smiled, they are close friends. Shen Qingqing unlocked the door, turned around and thanked him. Suddenly, his cell phone buzzed, and the ringtone was as harsh as an alarm. He glanced at the screen and whispered, hello? Well, the intelligence of number 1 middle school? That captain is invincible in eloquence, the rookie butcher, and he crushed the 3rd school in the last year. Yes, let's practice to death, don't be discouraged. The voice was low, but it penetrated her ears clearly. Shen Qingqing froze, her heart sinking. Is the number 1 middle school so strong? New butcher? The shadow of the inter-school competition was like a dark cloud, and she bit her lip as the blood reappeared. Li Xiu hung up and looked up to see her pale face, frowning slightly. Did you hear that? Don't be afraid, we have your ace in the game. His hand lightly touched her arm, and electricity rushed through her, and the warmth smoothed away the chill. Come on, let's go together. The figure rode away, swallowed by the night fog, and a Du turned around and barked, as if in response. Inside the door, Little White's paws patted his knees, his eyes sparkling. Shen Qingqing hugged him tightly and murmured, Little White, here comes the challenge. But with you, I'm not afraid. Fu Han's voice of guidance suddenly echoed in his mind. Wait, afternoon social in front of the group, he actually stopped her. The iron tower figure was blocking the way, the classroom was empty, and the fragrance of coffee lingered. Shen Qingqing, practice alone. She was frightened and followed her into the office. The wooden table creaked. He poured water and pushed it over, steaming. When I was young, is also introverted. He got stuck on the debate stage, was laughed at by the whole school, and stayed in isolation for half a year. His voice was rare and soft, and old scars flashed under his eyes, but grit your teeth in practice, and become the school captain. You have the fire, inter-school competition, Fu Han will support you. She froze with a big hand on the table, shook the glass of water, and burst into tears. Teacher, thank you. He turned around and covered it up with a cold snort. Go away, go practice. Don't embarrass me. The door was closed, and his back was like a mountain, stern and warm. Shen Qingqing's chest heaved, sweat evaporated into heat, and his face was as bright as the morning sun. The misunderstanding disappeared, and her heart surged. Li Xiu's eyes ignited for me. Xiaobai's tilted head, the flash of the iron triangle, and the warmth of the bracelet all converged into strength. She is ready for the inter-school competition. The wind blew outside the window and the sycamore leaves danced wildly, as if cheering for her transformation. The sycamore leaves in the alley rustled and whispered in the moonlight, like countless small sighs, and the sweet-scented osmanthus fragrance was thick and sticky, wrapped in the night wind and entering the nose. Shen Qingqing held Xiaobai's leather leash, walking slowly and slowly. Xiaobai's short legs swayed, and his paws clicked on the cement road with a crisp sound, and the golden retriever shone softly under the street lamp. It suddenly stopped, put its front paws on the ground, raised its head and barked, its watery eyes reflected on her face, as if urging, "Go home, master." The heat in his heart was still boiling, the touch of Li Xiu's arm was like the aftertaste of electricity, and the ribbon of the bracelet rustled against his wrist. She bent down and stroked Xiaobai's head. The furry touch was warm and the fragrance of milk hit her nostrils. Well, Xiaobai, let's go back. Tomorrow, there will be a simulation of the inter-school competition. I have to prove myself. Xiaobai whipped her tail out and whistled in the wind, licking her fingers, and her moist pink tongue slid across the skin, salty yet sweet. Opening the door, the living room was dimly lit, and my mother's supermarket apron was still hanging by the door. The faint smell of vegetable leaves mixed with the refreshing lemony smell of dishwashing liquid. Dad's labor boots were piled in the shoe cabinet, and the earthy smell was pungent. She slipped into the bedroom, the door clicked lightly, the desk lamp shed warm light, illuminating the scattered debate notes, and the smell of chalk dust like a blackboard eraser still lingered on the tip of her nose. His heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and Li Xiu's mint coolness and the word ace wrapped around his brain like vines. She bit her lip and took out the pink letter paper from the drawer. The ink smell of the pen was strong. The tip of the pen scratched the paper, and the handwriting was trembling. Li Xiu, I like you. The look in your eyes from the debate stage was like heat waves. Her cheeks were as hot as fire, and her self-esteem was like needles. What if she refused? Being dumped like a former teammate? She crumpled the paper, threw it into the wastebasket, took it out and rewrote it, corrected it 3 times, and finally folded it into a heart shape, with the edges of the pink satin curling slightly. Suddenly, there was a soft knock on the door with pause, and Xiaobai rushed in, sniffing the letter paper, and the fragrance of milk hit his face. It picked up the corner of the letter, bit it lightly with its teeth, and the paper tore. She screamed to save him. Xiaobai! Stop! Xiaobai backed away, wagging his tail into a golden fan, barking lowly, and the letter swayed in his mouth, as if he was playing a game. It spun in circles, its short legs tripped over the pillow, fluffy cotton wool flew up, she panted while chasing it, beads of sweat dripped down her neck, burning her collar. Finally catching it, Xiaobai let go and licked the letter paper with his pink tongue. The wet marks blurred the ink, and the handwriting blurred into a black spot. She collapsed on the edge of the bed, tears welling up, and the letter was wet in her palms. Xiaobai, what are you doing? This is my secret. Xiaobai put his front paws on his knees, pressed the back of her hand with hot pads, stared at her with bright eyes, and whimpered like a comfort, Don't worry, I will protect you. She put her head into her arms, her furry body pressed against her chest, and her warm heartbeat synchronized. She hugged him tightly, her sobs melting into a smile. Okay, just wait a minute. Your intuition is always right. The letter was crumpled and hidden under the pillow, her heart rippling, hesitation like night fog, but with a hint of sweet protection. The morning light of the next day was dazzling, the campus bells buzzed like war drums, the breakfast buns were steaming hot, and the gravy was fragrant. In the club classroom, the blackboard is densely covered with arguments like an iron net. The figure of Fu Han's iron tower knocks his leather shoes, the thumping sound shakes the ground, and the bitter taste of coffee fills the air. He glanced at the crowd and locked eyes with Shen Qingqing. Simulation competition? City number 1 middle school style, a butcher-style attack by the opposing side, you guys defend the right side. Shen Qingqing, start independently. The audience gasped. Luo Li flicked her ponytail, widened her eyes and whispered, Teacher, Qingqing just practiced alone yesterday. Chen Feng clenched his fists white, and his blood surged. She can do it. Li Xiu frowned slightly, the smell of mint wafted vaguely, and his eyes were filled with worry. Her heart sank to the bottom of her heart, her bracelets tightened around her wrists and felt hot, and her self-esteem was like cracked glass. Independence? The collapse of the past 2 days was still vivid, the intelligence of the city's number 1 middle school was like a shadow, and the new butcher crushed the 3rd school. Wouldn't she die if she came on stage? When it was her turn, the wooden boards of the podium creaked, the heat of the spotlight burned her face, beads of sweat rolled down her back, and her clothes became sticky. The opponent was Chen Feng, who simulated the city's number 1 middle school. He shouted passionately, "Campus love ruins schoolwork." Statistics show that the scores of students who fall in love drop by 20%. Whispers spread, and the boys in the back row chuckled. Is Shen Qingqing stuck again? An introverted girl can't handle it. Luo Li bit her lip. Chen Feng's eyes were as fierce as a real enemy. Xiaobai's licking of letters, Fu Han's old injury, and Li Xiu's arm flashed through her mind, and her blood surged, but her voice trembled. Just right, rebuttal. The whole audience erupted in snickers. Fu Han's iron face turned darker, and his leather shoes struck the ground like thunder. Nonsense. Li Xiu clenched his fists, and Luo Li's ponytail froze. Her face was pale, her vision was blurred, and the gold thread of her bracelet was glaring. It was over, another mistake, the iron triangle's face was lost, and its self-esteem was shattered. Suddenly, Xiaobai's whine echoed in her mind, her pink tongue was hot, she took a deep breath, the night fragrance of Osman thus appeared, and her voice was steady. Wrong. Data ignores variables, love inspires growth. Like me. The argument shot up like an arrow, and the data was sharp, reversing Chen Feng's offensive. You said the score dropped? But psychology proves that emotional support increases concentration by 30%. New butchers in the city's number 1 middle school? They ignore human nature. Chen Feng's eyes widened, his mouth opened into an O, and his passionate voice stopped. This. The whole place was dead silent. Luo Li screamed and jumped up. Qingqing Nio. The boys in the back row gasped. It's reversed. The introverted girl is hiding the king? Fu Han slammed the table with his big hand, banged the glass. Continue. She pursued the victory, speaking as fast as the wind, locking Chen Feng with her eyes, and the iron triangle bracelet jingled to accompany her. Chen Feng was sweating profusely and collapsed in his defense. I give up. The audience burst into applause. Fu Han grinned in a rare sight, cracking his iron face. First time independent, full marks. Inter-school competition, you go. Luo Li hugged her, ponytail swept her face. Queen. Chen Feng wiped his sweat and punched her on the shoulder. Muffled voice, girl, I'm so scared brother. This reversal is amazing. Li Xiu came closer, his eyes were like heat waves, and the mint was refreshing and tangy to his nose. He whispered, "Perfect, ace." Her face was red, her ears were hot, her heart was pounding, her secret love vines were growing wildly, and her self-esteem was like a phoenix rising from the ashes. In the aftertaste of applause, the door banged open, and a group of City No. 1 middle school spies broke in. The tall and thin captain sneered, the smell of tobacco was pungent, and the uniforms were straight. The underdogs are practicing simulations? I heard that the newcomers are introverted, we butchers are waiting to crush them. Chen Feng got excited and yelled back, "Get out! Let's watch the competition." Luo Li's ponytail Zhuofeng, "Weak? You just reversed your simulation style." The captain of the No. 1 squadron glanced at Shen Qingqing and taunted, "Girl? Points for newcomers." She bit her lip, smelling blood. Fu Hen smashed the door with his iron fist, and the roar was deafening. "Come out! See you on the field." They retreated, and the snickers echoed like poisonous needles, burying the shadow of Shura Field. The atmosphere in the audience was solemn. Li Xiu clenched his fist and said, "They are scaring you, don't panic." This only added to the pressure. Late at night, the moonlight shines on the alley, the sweet-scented osmanthus is fragrant, and the bracelets shine. The misunderstanding is resolved, the friendship is solid, the mentor approves, and Li Xiu like honey, but a new mystery is approaching, the butcher of the No. 1 middle school in the city, and the inter-school competition will become a surer field. Shen Qingqing takes Xiaobai for a walk, the wind is cool and the heart is warm. Transformation, continue. The rustling of the sycamore leaves seems to be whispering, "Get ready, queen." As night falls, the fog in the alleys is thick, and the sweet-scented osmanthus smells mixed with it. Xiaobai curled up on the carpet after dinner, breathing heavily, his golden hair was clammy, and his nose was dry and cracked. She knelt down in fear, her front paws were cold. "Xiaobai! What's wrong with you?" The temperature was 38.9, which was as hot as coals. It whined weakly and its tail hung weakly. She stayed up all night, using a towel with ice water on her forehead, which felt wet and cold to the touch, and her hair oozed. The medicine dripped bitterly into her nose, and the lights were dazzling and blinding. Mom pushed the door open, still wearing her apron, rubbed her eyes and whispered, "Qingqing, pets are like family members, please stay vigil." She hugged Xiaobai, her furry body warmed her chest, and her heart was like a knife, it kept my secrets, licked my tears to encourage me, and now it is my responsibility to grow up and no longer escape inwardly. The fragrance of milk faded in her tears, and she murmured, "Xiaobai, persist, just like I am turning the tables." The wind blew outside the window, and the sycamore leaves danced wildly like battle flags. The next day in the club, the classroom was stuffy and chalk dust was flying. Fu Hen arranged the groups, and Li Xiu suddenly approached. His tall figure blocked the light, and the coolness of mint hit his face. A dew followed with short legs and a spiral tail. "Shen Qingqing, practice alone." "Butcher of the No. 1 middle school, we will simulate a confrontation." The whole audience. Whispering, Luo Li's eyes widened and she blinked. "Wow, kiss me, Captain." Chen Feng hit the table with his fist and muffled, "Qingqing, torture him." Her heartbeat was like a drum, the thumping was deafening, her face was red and her ears were hot, and the letter was at the bottom of her school bag. "Hand it over now?" Self-esteem collides, and ambiguous currents flow through the arms. Li Xiu's eyes locked, and heatwave chased the soul. "Let's go, there is no one in the playground." She nodded, her steps were like clouds, her bracelets jingled, and images flashed in Xiaobai's mind, protect or release. The sun is dazzling outside the door, and challenges and thoughts are intertwined into a web. Fu Han looked from afar and raised his iron face slightly. What a good prospect. A passerby whispered, "That girl, reversed yesterday, and today the captain is training alone? The iron triangle is going to explode." In the shadow of crisis, new bonds are quietly born, and the inter-school Shura field is about to be launched. The playground lawn was wet, the smell of freshly cut grass mixed with the earthy smell hit your nose, and the sunlight fell like molten gold, making your eyes dizzy. Li Xiu's tall figure stood still, while Adu squatted beside him with short legs, his tail spiraling in the wind, and the fragrance of corgi milk floated faintly. His cool mint breath came like a wave, and his eyes locked on Shen Qingqing's heart, burning like a heat wave, style of a butcher in the city, attack ruthlessly. You are square, and you can carry 3 rounds independently. Her heart sank to the bottom, her wrists were hot with the bracelet, her footsteps squeaked on the grass, and beads of sweat slid down her spine and sticky clothes. The boys passing by the club on the roadside snickered and whispered, "Introverted girl is the captain of the single training? Butcher simulation, give me points." Luo Li flicked her ponytail in the wind in the distance, bit her lip and stared. Chen Feng clenched his fists white, and roared with passion, "Qingqing, torture him." Fu Han leaned against the iron tower against the tree, the coffee was filled with bitterness, and his iron face was unwavering. Li Xiu started with a bang, his voice was sonorous and the smell of mint hit his face. Campus love is a pure cancer. The data is irrefutable, the dropout rate of students in love has soared by 40%, a waste of youth. His eyes are fierce, his logic is like a knife, and the data is like a net. Her mind was buzzing, her self-esteem was like cracked glass, her throat was dry, and she spoke tremblingly, "That's right, rebuttal." The words were stuck, and passers-by gasped. A girl covered her mouth and laughed softly, "Broken again? Captain, please kiss me, it's miserable." Adu whined and threw his short legs on the lawn, as if feeling his master's attack. An image flashed in Xiaobai's mind, hot pink tongue, guarding the night alley. She took a deep breath, the lingering scent of osman thus appeared, the gold thread on her bracelet jingled, and her blood surged. Wrong. Data ignores cause and effect, love is not the cause, stress is. Psychological evidence, emotional support reverses the low point, improves stress resistance by 50%. The argument was reflected like an arrow. Li Xiu frowned slightly, feeling shocked by the coolness of the mint, and grass clippings flew in his steps. He pursued harder and spoke as fast as a storm, "Support?" The butcher in the number 1 middle school crushed him to prove that all the newlyweds in love collapsed. "Your growth? What a joke!" Passers-by whispered, "Captain suppressed, the introverted girl is finished." Luo Li's ponytail froze, Chen Feng's fist hit the tree trunk with a muffled sound, and Fu Han's leather shoes knocked on the ground. Her face was pale and her vision was blurry, but she recalled that Xiaobai had been sick all night, the towel was cold and seeped into her hands, and her heart was churning, like me, from boring good to ace. Love inspires, not destroys. The data was sharp, and the logic network turned against Li Xiu. His eyes widened, the smell of mint disrupted the rhythm, and his voice was slightly stuck. "This, variable?" The whole place was dead silent, Adu's tail stopped spinning, and the passerby's mouth opened. "Inverse turned? She abused the captain?" Luo Li screamed and jumped up. "Queen's magic." Chen Feng roared with enthusiasm. "Qingqing is awesome." Fu Han slapped the tree with his big hand, roaring and shaking the leaves. "Full score. Into school, you 2 iron guards." Li Xiu stopped, the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, and the heat wave in his eyes was perfect, ace. Her face was red, her ears were hot, her heart was beating, and her arms were filled with ambiguous electricity. Her self-esteem was like a phoenix reborn. After practice, the setting sun stretches out the shadows, and the cool breeze on the playground smells of fragrant grass. Luo Li and Chen Feng rushed towards her, their bracelets intertwined and rustling, and the golden thread shone like stars. Iron Triangle celebrates. Qingqing, abuse the captain, God. Chen Feng punched her shoulder with a muffled sound, and the smell of hot blood and sweat was steaming. Sister, butcher's information? Let's crush it. Li Xiu approached. Adu scanned the image in Xiaobai's mind. Mint hit her nose, and whispered, get some rest, warm up on pet day in front of the school. She nodded, her heart as full as honey, and took stock of her harvest. 2 consecutive perfect scores for independence, strong self-confidence, reinforcement of Xiaobai's protection, and a love letter under her pillow. The night breeze blows gently, the bracelet is warm, and youth transforms like the rising sun. The next day, the campus was buzzing with pet day banners and loudspeakers blaring. All-school pet show, single pet contestant on stage. Colorful flags were flying on the playground, the sweet smell of popcorn was mixed with the slight stench of dog feces, and students were buzzing around the circle. Shen Qingqing led Xiaobai onto the stage, tapping her short legs and paws against the wooden board. The golden retriever was shining gold in the sun, and the fragrance of milk was fragrant. It was the only dog participating in the competition, and the surrounding cats, rabbits, and hamsters stole the show. Passers-by laughed. Introverted girl's pet? Golden retriever puppy, performing? It's so funny. Luo Li flicked her ponytail in the wind, and Chen Feng punched. Come on, Iron Triangle. Li Xiu leaned on the stage, and Adu squatted beside him with short legs. The coolness of Mint drifted in, and his eyes locked with heat waves. Fu Han stood back with an iron face and tapped his leather shoes on the ground. When the performance started, Xiaobai put his front paws on the ground and whipped his tail in the wind. Shen Qingqing ordered, Xiaobai, roll in the circle. He turned around and stumbled, and the short-leg sliding board creaked. The audience burst into snickers. Stupid dog. The newcomer is in trouble. Her pride was pricked, her face was hot, and her heart sank. Xiaobai had only recovered for 2 days. What if he made a fool of himself? A passerby girl covered her mouth and said, the master pet of Menghulu, you deserve it. Suddenly, Little White barked brightly, his watery eyes reflected her, and the licking in her mind was hot. She took a deep breath, and the scent of sweet-scented osmanthus rose up. Little White, roll over. It rolled backwards, its golden fur was flying and fluffy, its claws tapped in rhythm, and it landed perfectly, with its tail spiraling like a fan. The audience gasped, and Luo Li screamed, cute. Chen Feng roared passionately, magical dog? Li Xiu's eyes brightened, and he handed the prop ball, and the mint hand touched the fingertips. Tacit understanding, catch it. She caught the ball and threw it. Xiaobai picked it back, licked the palm with hot pink tongue, and the fragrance was rich in milk. The tacit interaction was like dancing. The ball rolled on the wooden board, and the whole school cheered and applauded thunderously. During the climax, the steps were slippery. Xiaobai rushed forward to chase the ball, but his short legs tripped him and he fell like a plummet. The audience screamed loudly, and her blood surged. She rushed forward and hugged her, Xiaobai. Her body hit the wooden board of the platform and it was suffocating. Her arm flesh was bruised and hot, and her furry body felt warm when pressed against her chest. It is safe, and the pink tongue licks the wet marks on the face, salty and sweet. She hugged her tightly and stood up, the smell of golden retriever milk wrapped in sweat, and the whole place was dead silent. The boys on the road stared wide-eyed. Protective dog? Introverted girl is brave. The girl's eyes were filled with tears, touched. Luo Li threw herself on the stage, her ponytail swept her face, Qingqing hero. Chen Feng punched the air and shouted, Iron Triangle is proud. Li Xiu jumped up, Peppermint hit his nose and raised his arms, Hot Palm presses the injury, full, brave. Fu Han hits the edge of the stage with his iron fist and roars, with a rare trembling voice, Shen Qingqing. Pet Day MVP. Bravery is not an introverted escape, but a transformation of responsibility. The whole school learns it. The cheers were loud, ribbons rained down on her cheeks and she burst into tears. Her self-esteem was at its peak, friendship and love were intertwined, and her bracelets jingled with gold. The sun sets in the west, the shadows of the sycamore trees flicker at the school gate, and the sweet-scented osmanthus is wrapped in the wind. Li Xiu insisted on sending her Xiaobai home, and Adu followed with short legs and tails bumping against Xiaobai. His tall figure stood side by side, with the refreshing fragrance of mint mixed with milk. Today, you protected Xiaobai, like a reversal of the argument. I admire you, from boring good to ace. The heat-wave eyes were piercing, and the ambiguous current rushed through her body. Her heartbeat was like a deer, her face was red and her ears were hot, and her self-esteem collided and the misunderstanding disappeared. Had he noticed earlier? The lights in the alley were dim and her footsteps were rustling. She touched her school bag, and the love letter swelled in the shape of a heart. Li Xiu, I. After swallowing the words, Luo Li suddenly jumped out, her ponytail waving in the wind and hugging her. Qingqing. MVP Queen, celebration night go away. Chen Feng followed up with enthusiasm and punched Li Xiu on the shoulder with a muffled sound. Captain, what's the reward for losing a single match? It's so ambiguous. Li Xiu laughed at the mint powder, and there was a lingering look in Li Xiu's eyes. She bit her lip and pressed the letter to the bottom, sweet and regretful. Opening the door to the house, the lights in the living room are dim and warm, the smell of vegetable leaves from my mother's apron is pungent, and the soil from my father's boots is pungent. Xiaobai curled up on the carpet after dinner, panting steadily, and the golden retriever was dry and the smell of milk was strong again. She was relieved and slipped into the bedroom. The door clicked and the desk lamp smelled like notebook chalk dust. Inventory of daily awards, Pet Day MVP, praise from the whole school, recognition for bravery, peak self-confidence, solid friendship with the bracelet, and ambiguous appreciation for Li Xiu. The letter paper loomed under the pillow, and she smiled. Wait a moment, Xiaobai will protect you. Suddenly, there was a light tap of claws, and Xiaobai rushed in, sniffing the pillow, and the fragrance of milk hit his face. It arched its head, bit the corner of the pillow with its teeth and pulled it apart, and the pink heart-shaped letter fell off. The ink is blurred and wet, but the handwriting is faint. She exclaimed and rushed to the rescue. Xiaobai. Come again? It held the letter in its mouth and swung it, its tail swung in the wind and roared, its watery eyes sparkling. It's time to release it, master. My heart is churning, my face is as hot as fire, my self-esteem is shocked. Rewrite now? Li Xiu was in a state of intense heat. She grabbed the letter, the scent of ink mixed with milk, and murmured, maybe, the debate will take place tomorrow. In the afternoon, when the club broke up and the sunset dyed the window red, Luo Li pulled her Chen Feng. The three of them crossed their bracelets and rustled. Iron Triangle, celebrate. Let's bake the sweet potatoes. Chen Feng laughed, her blood was steaming, and her heart was full, but there was a dull pain under the letter pillow. Hand it over? At dawn, Xiaobai opened his eyes, flicked his tail slightly, and licked his palms with his pink tongue to make them wet and warm. She cried with joy and hugged her tightly. Recovered. My patron saint. Xiaobai crossed his knees, his eyes sparkling, as if to say, let's be strong together. The heart is clear, responsibility is like wings, transformation is strengthened, and the bracelet is shining with gold. The icy creak of the doorknob turned like a knife scraping bones. The night wind mixed with the pungent smell of tobacco and the smell of cheap rubber shoes rushed into the bedroom. The swaying lights elongated the upright outline of Xiaobai's golden hair. Her heart was beating like a war drum, the golden thread of her bracelet was cutting into the palm of her hand and it hurt, the pink letter paper was soaked with sweat, and the ink was smudged into black spots. The curtains fluttered, and the knocking on the door started again, a dull thump like a hammer hitting the heart. Shen Qingqing. Open the door, we know you are there. A rude male voice growled, mixed with snickers, and the accent of City No. 1 Middle School was as thick as poisonous fog. Xiaobai whined and barked, her short legs hit the bed with her paws and slapped rapidly on the wooden board. The smell of milk and sweat hit her nostrils, and the playground whispers flashed through her mind. The spies are coming. Her legs were as soft as cotton, she grabbed the letter paper and stuffed it into the drawer, inhaled deeply the lingering scent of osmanthus, and opened the door with trembling hands. Who? The figures of two tall boys outside the door were distorted by the light, their school uniforms were wrinkled, and the smell of cigarette smoke was pungent on their collars. City No. 1 Middle School is watching the video, it's so funny. Next week in the inter-school competition, our trio of butchers will be on the field to warm you up first. He threw out a stack of printer paper and dropped it on the floor. The data chart was like a net, and it was densely populated. City No. 1 Middle School won 5 consecutive championships, with a winning rate of 98%, and bloody photos of newcomers' defeats, a girl who collapsed in tears, and a boy who fainted at the debate stage. Another tall and lanky boy pushed open the door, his rubber shoes stinking into his face, and his eyes were sinister. Zhao Kai, the genius debater, crushed the National Junior High School Championship at the age of 16. Your emotional support? He specializes in curing data and is invincible in love cancer. Get ready to cry. They backed away in the dim light of the street lamp, and their snickers echoed in the alley like ghosts. Remember, knocking on the door is just the beginning. See you at school. The door slammed shut, making the window pane buzz. She slid down on the floor, the scratch on her arm rekindled, and her tears smashed against the paper, soaking the data chart. The peak of pet life is shattered like a bubble, the wings of confidence are broken and fall into the valley. Xiaobai arches his body and presses his chest, licks the salty and sweet traces on his face with hot pink tongue. The fragrance of milk is warm but cannot suppress the chill. Genius Zhao Kai? The serial killer? She grabbed the printing paper, digging her nails into the edges, and her mind was filled with the predictions of passers-by, a disastrous failure in giving away points. It was a sleepless night, the shadows of the parasol trees outside the window shook like ghost claws, and the countdown between schools was filled with dark clouds. The dazzling morning light shines in, and the sweet-scented osmanthus alley is thick and tangy. She leads Xiaobai for morning exercises, tapping her short legs and paws on the cement, and the fragrance of milk is mixed with fresh dew. On the side of the playground, Luo Li's ponytail flicked out in the wind, and the golden threads of her bracelets jingled. Qingqing. Why did you knock on the door last night? Your face is as white as a ghost. Chen Feng followed up with a fistful of blood, and the smell of sweat was steaming. A spy from the No. 1 Middle School? Dare you come to your lair, smash it. She swallowed bitterly and handed over the printing paper. Their expressions suddenly darkened. Luo Li bit her lips and trembled. Zhao Kai, the intelligence said that his logic is like a machine gun, his eyes are killing people, and all the newcomers are broken. Chen Feng fisted his bones. I'm not afraid of the iron triangle. But, it's a lot of pressure. Xiaobai whined and arched her legs, flicking her tail as if to comfort her. She took a deep breath, and the scent of osmanthus stirred up her energy. Practice. Fu Han said to attack the weak points. I'll do it. The broken glass of self-esteem pricked my heart, but I forced myself to loudly say, open the square, love is not a cancer. The voice started to tremble and then became sonorous. The boy who passed by morning gymnastics widened his eyes and whispered, did the introverted girl yell? Yesterday the MVP turned into a strong voice? The debate club room was stuffy, the smell of chalk dust permeated the air, and the blackboard data was densely covered like an iron net. Fu Han leaned against the door of the iron tower. The coffee was bitter and tangy, and his iron face became darker. Knock on the door of City Number 1 Middle School. Okay, the crisis is real and the people are strong. Qingqing, Pet Day Brave MVP, now practicing three-person butcher simulation. Li Xiu's tall figure pushed the door, Adu's short-legged crouched with his tail twirling slightly, the cool mint floated and his eyes locked on her, the heat wave was worried, yes the hand genius Xiaobai has a weakness, data ignores human nature, and he regards love as a zero-sum game. If you are a solo practitioner, you are against me, Iron Guard, but the three of them. Before he finished speaking, Fu Han slapped the table with his big hands and roared, start. Li Xiu, Chen Feng, and Luo Li, the reverse butcher's attack. The air froze, and she stood alone, beads of sweat running down her spine and her clothes, and her heart was as heavy as lead. Li Xiu fired a thunderbolt, and the smell of mint was like a wave. The dropout rate in love is 40%, Xiaokai's data proves. Emotional support? Illusion. The logic was cut, her throat was dry and her mouth was trembling. Stuck, Chen Feng chased after the hot-blooded roar, 99% of newcomers are defeated, you grow up? What a joke! Luo Li the ponytail was stiff, and it was rare and cruel. Bracelet friendship? Three people from the city's number 1 middle school are tacitly crushing each other. All the passers-by in the room burst into whispers. 3 people slaughtered, Qingqing will collapse. Fu Han's leather shoes clicked on the ground, her brain was buzzing, her arms were injured, and her vision was blurred. The image of Xiaobai's morning exercise flashed, pink tongue is hot. The data paper casts a shadow over the top, and the inter-school countdown is like a countdown bomb ticking. She gritted her teeth, wrong. The data has reversed cause and effect, stress causes dropout, love reverses. The argument was weak. Fu Han frowned and remained calm, while Li Xiu's eyes were filled with worry, persevere, but, the three of them suppressed her. After the defeat in practice, her face turned pale and she slid down the chair. The club members gasped and whispered, can't even the MVP? The genius of number 1 middle school, it's over. Luo Li. He hugged his ponytail and swept his face, Qingqing, don't be discouraged, the meaning of the bracelet is, the iron triangle woven with gold threads, the ancestral heritage of the Luo family, bound forever. The gold flashed during yesterday's celebration, stronger in crisis. Chen Feng punched his shoulder with a muffled sound, smelling blood and sweat. 3 of you will practice together. I will play the role of butcher number 1, and my blood will attack you. Warmth surged slightly, but it could not suppress the dark cloud. Genius is invincible. Just as he was hesitating, there was an abrupt knock on the door outside the window, a dull thud like thunder, and the night wind filled his nose with a pungent smell. Who? So late? Little White's ears are erect, whining lowly in warning, and his golden hair is standing on end. Her heartbeat froze, her bracelet hurt, and the letter crumpled in her palm, a spy from number 1 middle school? Or, the shadow of crisis suddenly rose, and the doorknob turned coldly. The next day, she stepped up her morning practice. Xiaobai slapped her short legs on the lawn, and the fragrance of milk was wrapped around her. She yelled the argument, Emotional support can improve stress resistance by 50%. The voice echoed in the playground, and passers-by girls covered their mouths and stared. Introverted girl turned into a trumpet? But, butcher information, miserable. She attacked weak points sharply and cut into the blind spots of human nature in data. Fu Han smashed the tree with his iron fist and blasted, progress. But Zhao Kai's eyes are like wolves and his predictions are impeccable. Li Xiu leaned against the tree, and Adu Gongshabai licked each other's wet heat. Mint hit her nose and whispered, "Rest, demonstrate the gestures." He suddenly held her hand, and the high-temperature electric current ran through her arms, and her fingertips were thin. Her face was cool and sweaty, her face was red and her ears were hot, her heart was beating like a deer, and the ambiguous fireworks were exploding. Li Xiu. She ran away, her skirt swept away grass clippings, and the members of the club snickered and buzzed. The captain is ambiguous? Introverted girl blushes and runs away, sweet. There was a slight lingering heat wave at the corner of his mouth, and she was confused and self-esteem was shattered. The crisis is overwhelming, and you are still distracted? During her lunch break, the shadows of the parasol trees trailed behind her, and she sat alone on the stairs, rubbing her bracelet warmly, and her little brain image, biting the letter to urge her to release. The love letter is blurry and ink-stained, and the ambiguous current reminds Li Xiu of sending home a warm hand, but there is irrefutable data. Does love ruin a new couple? Self-esteem collides with misunderstanding. He praises Ace, but loses to 3 people for the first time? The setting sun stretches the shadows. Inter-school poster hunting. City number 1 middle school butcher versus school guard. The decisive battle next week. On the 3rd day, the campus was boiling like a cauldron, and the horns were blaring. City number 1 middle school visiting challenge. Newcomers versus genius Zhao Kai. The playground is on the way. Colorful flags were being hunted, and the sweet smell of popcorn mixed with the smell of nervous sweat. Students circled and whispered, "Knock on the door to warm up." The introverted MVP singled out the butcher genius, and suffered misfortune. Qingqing, come on. The first powerful enemy, verifying the iron guard. Li Xiu's eyes locked with heat waves. Adu squatted on the side and stopped spinning. Luo Li bit her lip and her ponytail was stiff. Chen Feng fisted and shouted with blood, "Qingqing, torture him." She led Xiaobai on the stage, tapping her short legs and claws. Her nose was filled with golden hair, her arms were hurt, and her heart sank. All 3 of them collapsed during the training. Single-handedly challenge a genius? The data iron net has been covered. Zhao Kai's tall and thin figure jumps on the stage. His wolf eyes are looking at him. The smell of tobacco glue is faint, and he asks in the corner of his mouth, "Introverted girl, knock on the door to accept the gift?" It's a pet day trick. The data shows the truth. Love cancer. The cure is right. The whole place was dead silent, passers-by gasping. The girl whispered, "The eyes are killing me, I'm broken." Her throat is dry, her bracelets are strangling, her little white girl is moaning and arching her legs, her pink tongue is hot, her self-esteem is like a glass cliff edge. Dark clouds of crisis are looming over the city, and the inter-school rehearsal disaster is approaching. Are you ready? A storm of logic arose, beads of sweat rolled down his sticky palms, and in his blurred vision, the phantom fragrance of Osmanthus drifted faintly. The playground is steaming with heat, the colorful flags are popping like whips whipping the air, and the sweet and greasy popcorn mixed with the stench of students' sweat and the wet smell of lawn mud is coming to your nostrils. Thousands of pairs of eyes in the audience were like needles piercing their backs, and buzzing whispers were circling like a swarm of bees. Introverted girl singled out Zhao Kai? Knock on the door to warm up and collapse. The data wolf is coming. Zhao Kaigao's slimming image ghostly leaned forward, wolf eyes locked on her, the smell of tobacco rubber shoes oozed faintly, and the corners of his mouth extended the arc of ridicule. The positive opening. Love cancer. data is irrefutable evidence, dropout the academic rate has soared by 40%, and the emotionally dependent newcomers have collapsed by 99%. Your pet trick? A zero-sum game, a waste of campus resources. His voice sounded like a machine gun, and every word of data dropped to the ground. The red line flashed sharply. The audience gasped, and the girl screamed, "The eyes are killing you. Can't you clear your throat?" Her throat was as dry as sandpaper, her palms were wet with sweat and the gold threads of her bracelets were digging into her flesh, her little white short legs were tapping the wooden platform with her paws, and her golden retriever was fragrant with the fragrance of milk in the sunshine, but she couldn't suppress her panic. A simulated rout of 3 people flashed through his mind: Li Xiu's bombardment, Chen Feng's passionate pursuit, Luo Li's ruthless throat seal, and the shattered glass-piercing self-esteem rekindled in his heart. Her legs were as soft as cotton, and she opened her mouth. On the contrary, love is not the cause, but the decompression. The words were stuck, and Xiaobai chased after him with a wolfish smile. Decompression? Data joke. I am the national junior high school champion and I have crushed hundreds of people, but you are the MVP, so cry. The logical storm is like a hurricane. The storm came, and the audience's whispers exploded. It's broken. The introverted girl's face is as white as paper, and the data network is dead. Fu Han's frown deepened, his leather shoes thumped on the ground like a heartbeat counting down. Li Xiu's eyes were full of worry, and Adu squatted with short legs and his tail stopped spinning. Luo Li bit her lip and shook her ponytail in the wind, while Chen Feng fisted his bones and groaned silently. Her vision was blurred, her arm injury was burning, the phantom scent of Osmanthus was faintly wafting, and her argument was disconnected: emotional support, improve resistance to stress. Weak as a mosquito, Xiaobai slashed her with a data knife. Promote. Case studies prove, there are mountains of newbies crying. The whole audience roared with laughter. She slipped to her knees and half-knelt, tears splashing on the table. The shadow of the data paper was like an iron prison, and the bottom of her confidence fell through the center of the earth. The whistle was shrill and sharp, and Fu Han waved his hand to stop. The challenge is suspended, the newcomers are fighting for the first time, the butcher is out. Xiaobai shook his head and his blue-haired bald friend snickered and retreated. The smell of glue and smoke followed like a ghost. See you at school, introvert girl has warmed up enough. The audience left and buzzed. Whispers flowed like a flood. Even the MVP can't resist the wolf eyes of geniuses. The #1 middle school is unbeatable, and the iron guard of our school is broken. She hugged her knees and curled up, and Xiaobai arched her body and pressed her chest. Her pink tongue was hot and licked the tear stains, which was salty and sweet, and the fragrance of milk was warm. His short paws tapped her arm gently as if to encourage her. The heart is as grey as death. Why is it so introverted? Parents sighed at the parent-teacher meeting. Qingqing is too boring. Teacher Fu said that isolation will ruin your future. Self-doubt is like poison ivy, the illusion of the peak of pet life. The data irrefutably proves that love is ruinous, and the confession letter is ridiculed by the ink on the pillow. Li Xiu's hot palm is sweet, but he loses to the 3-person simulation for the first time? Self-esteem collides with misunderstandings, so why do you always get stuck? Li Xiu's tall figure jumped off the stage, the coolness of mint hitting his face mixed with the heat of sweat. He squatted down and gently held her shoulders, and the high-temperature palms were filled with electric current that hit the bottom of her heart. Qingqing, hold on. Xiaobai has strong statistics, but ignores the blind spots of human nature. Your morning practice shouting arguments are already sharp. His eyes were locked like torches, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised with worry. Her face was red and her ears were burning, and the tears were not dry, but her heartbeat was pounding. She shook it off. but the warmth lingered on her fingertips. Luo Li's ponytail rushed to hug her, the fragrant wind swept her face, and the golden threads of her bracelets jingled loudly, ching-ching. The three of us are still in the iron triangle. Yesterday we hugged each other and weaved the golden threads tightly, and now we are going to torture the butcher. Chen Feng's fists punched the air with a muffled sound, and the smell of sweat was steaming. I played the role of Wolf Eyes number 1, and I trained him all night. A member of the passerby whispered with wide eyes, "Captain, hold your hand." Ambiguity? The introverted girl blushed, and the friendship between the three was reversed? Fu Hen leaned on the iron tower, breathing bitterly from the coffee. Go home to review, and increase the intensity of morning training tomorrow. The crisis is real, and the Iron Guard's transformation has started from the bottom. Xiaobai whimpered, arching her legs and shaking her legs. The fragrance of milk pulled her to her feet, and the sunset on the playground stretched out its shadow, and the slight warmth was like a flame. As night falls, the lights of the debate club flicker, and the smell of chalk dust mixed with coffee is as bitter and stuffy as a steamer. 3 people gathered around the table with iron triangles. The golden threads of their bracelets overlapped and shone like stars, and the data sheets were spread out and densely covered with red threads. Luo Li flicked her ponytail and pointed at the chart, Zhao Kai's weakness, a zero-sum perspective on data, ignoring the reversal of emotional cause and effect. Chen Feng banged his fist on the table, "Play him." He roars with a clear voice, which is incompatible with human nature. She took a deep breath, her throat was still dry. Love is not poison, it is an antidote to stress. Data cause and effect are reversed, stress causes failure, and supports a comeback. The voice started to tremble and then became sonorous. Luo Li's eyes widened and she screamed, "Progress." Yesterday, the stage was stuck, now the knife is cutting into the blind spot. Chen Feng responded enthusiastically, "Tacit understanding is born, iron triangle attack is practiced on your own." The lights were bright all night, the shadow of the sycamore outside the window shook like a ghost's claw, the arguments were tempered like swords, and the psychological game was churning. Defeat hurts the heart, but forced out resourcefulness, not to rely on data, but to tie the wolf's neck around human nature. At 3 o'clock in the morning, her eyelids were heavy, and she rubbed her arm with pain. "My parents' expectations are as heavy as mountains. I studied silently since I was a child." Fu Han lamented his loneliness at parent-teacher conferences. "Self-doubt is like a shackle. My pet is MVP every day, but Xiaobai licks his face and screams." Luo Li threw herself on the table and hugged Xiangfeng. "The root cause? Let's solve it with the golden thread. Luo family's ancestral tradition, the binding will never break up." Chen Feng hit his shoulder with a dull sound. "Doubt? Burn the blood." At dawn, Luo Li dragged her out of school, her ponytail swaying in the street. "Go shopping to relieve stress, and use your new bracelet to strengthen the iron triangle." The street lights were dim, the aroma of oil smoke and pancakes from the breakfast stall mixed with the aftertaste of Osmanthus Alley. The glass windows of the shopping mall were bright, and gold and silver threads shone in front of the bracelet stall. She picked 3 new rings, heart-shaped with silver wire and inlaid with rose quartz. Luo Li bit her lip to pay. Upgraded ancestral heritage, the jingle rhythm is firmer in crisis. Chen Feng tried it on enthusiastically and shook his fists. It blinded the butcher's eyes. A passerby girl widened her eyes and whispered, "Introverted girl with red and swollen eyes when shopping?" Best friend of the ponytail queen, the friendship turned sweet. The new rings clasped the wrist, gold and silver overlapped, the old threads jingled and jingled, and the heart was as warm as spring. The bond is strong, and the broken pieces of self-esteem are reassembled. Fu Han was waiting in the social room, leaning against the door of the iron tower, steam rising from his coffee cup. His iron face was rarely soft, Qingqing, listen to my old stories. In the past, I was as introverted as a mouse. I was defeated in the first game and cried on the stage. The expectations of my parents bent my spine. Fu Han, farewell. Shame on you. Self-doubt gnaws at the heart, but one night the opponent's arrogance is revealed. Transformation starts from the bottom, and persistence is a sword. His voice is as low as a bell, his leather shoes are tapping in a steady rhythm, and his eyes are filled with fire. All the members in the room burst out in whispers. Teacher, sharing? The Iron Tower has a weakness. Introverted girls are dumbfounded. She choked in the throat. Teacher. I have the same roots. My parents will sigh. Doubting love will ruin the future. Fu Han slapped his shoulder with a heavy but warm hand. That's right. Emotional support, your MVP proves. Zhao Kai has been trained to death, and the 3 inter-school butchers are waiting for you to guard. The turning point of the psychological game. The desperate situation is not the end. The plan is emerging, re-examining the sword of human nature, sacrificing sleep all night in exchange for tacit understanding. The lights in the alleyway back home are dim. Xiaobai is curled up on the carpet and breathing flat, and the fragrance of golden retriever milk is thicker and hits the pillow. Its watery eyes blinked, its pink tongue licked the new bracelet with a silvery glow, and the corner of its pillow barked an aphrodisiac. She buried her face in the pillow and muttered, Xiaobai, lick up your tears of defeat, the strength comes from you. Electricity flashed in his mind while shaking hands, and Li Xiu's hands were warm and he was confused. Time to confess? The crisis is overwhelming, and the ink stains on the letter paper are as hesitant as thorns. The phone buzzed and vibrated, and the screen lit up with a mint avatar. Li Xiu's message. Qingqing, defeat is not defeated. Make an appointment tonight to practice one-on-one. Demonstrate gestures and attack Zhao Kai's wolf eyes. Come. His heartbeat beat like a war drum, and he ran around with joy. An electric current exploded fireworks. His face was red and hot, and his fingers trembled. Okay, thank you. But he hesitated and bit his lip. Love letter release? Self-esteem collides with misunderstandings. He comforts and holds hands sweetly, and is distracted before school? The little white tail swung and arched its legs, wrapping its palms with the scent of milk, as if urging courage. The curtains fluttered late at night, the shadows of the plane trees shook like claws, and the barking of dogs echoed in the alley. The little white protruding ears are erect and the golden hair is standing upright. It whines and barks, its short legs flutter at the window and tap the glass with its paws. The fragrance of milk mixed with the smell of alert sweat hits your nostrils. Her heart was pounding and she turned to the light of her mobile phone to shine outside the window. Black shadows flashed through the yellow halo of the street lights, tall and thin silhouettes, wolf eyes faintly reflected, and the smell of tobacco glue seeped faintly through the cracks in the curtains. Zhao Kai's brain flashed and he exclaimed, knocking on the door is just the beginning. Conspiracy? Spies attack again? The data paper was heavily shadowed on the pillow. She hugged Xiaobai and trembled, guard, fight back from now on. The black shadow outside the window retreated with chaotic footsteps, the snickering buzzed like ghosts drifting away, Xiaobai barked loudly and the window buzzed, and the silver light of her new bracelet shone and jingled. The pinnacle of the psychological game, the desperate situation suppresses the situation, the self-esteem explodes, the resourceful plan is initially formed, the sword of human nature is tempered, the iron triangle is locked, the flames of inter-school reversal reach the bottom. The scent of sweet-scented osman thus floated thickly, and as she counted down to morning exercises, she secretly clenched her fists. Genius, prepare to cry. The yellow lights in the alley flickered like will-o'-the-wisps, the rustling of sycamore leaves rubbed against the night wind like claws scratching the heart, the little white golden hair's inverted short legs fluttered against the window, its claws tapped on the glass like a barrage of cannons. The window frames buzzed and reverberated with barks, and the scent of milk mixed with the sharp and pungent smell of sweat was alarming. Her heart was pounding like a war drum and her chest was exploding. She grabbed the mobile phone and swept the light beam out of the window. A tall and thin silhouette of a black figure flashed under the street lamp. The wolf's eyes reflected green light for a moment. The strong smell of tobacco and rubber shoes seeped through the seams of the curtains like poisonous mist. "Agent Zhao Kai!" She yelled out with a dry throat and a burning arm wound. She threw off the quilt and stepped out of the door with her short legs. The small white arrow flew through the crack in the door, her tail whistled in the wind, and her golden fur burst out like a little sun in the night light. Black shadows scurried to the end of the alley with chaotic footsteps, and the smell of glue and cigarette smoke followed like a ghost thread. She panted and chased the little white leader, running with short legs and tapping on the stone slabs. The smell of wet and cold moss on the alley wall hit her face, her heart beat like a deer, and the fragments of her self-esteem rekindled. She could no longer run away, the conspiracy was exposed. The black shadow turned and the trash can overturned with a clang, the smell of rotten vegetable leaves exploded and the night dew was sour. She slipped and almost fell, and her knees hit the stone slab, which was burning and stinging. Xiaobai whined and lifted her up with his legs, and his hot pink tongue licked the palm of his hand with the sweet and salty scent of milk. "Chase!" A low roar erupted, but the black figure stretched and disappeared into the road. The alley was as deep as an ink prison, and despair was like ice water pouring over the top. A single defeat was not enough, eavesdropping on the strategy. The inter-school iron guard was reduced to rubbish. The streetlight buzzed and hummed intermittently. She hugged her knees and gasped, and her tears splashed against the stone. Xiaobai arched her chest and moaned, licking the tear stains with her pink tongue. Her tail was frozen and untwisted, as if she was heartbroken. The passerby stopped at night with his eyes rounded, and the garbage bag rustled on the ground. Introverted girl chasing ghosts in the middle of the night? Golden retriever rabbit hero, wolf shadow tall and thin, that madman in number 1 middle school? Whispers spread, she bit her lip and the smell of blood filled the air. Her pride collided and misunderstandings broke her heart. Parents will lament the loneliness. Is Fu Han's transformation in the past fake? The little white protruding ears turned up and turned its head and barked, its short legs pounced and its front paws scratched the ground, and the remaining black footprints and wet mud marks were exposed under the flashing light. The cool breeze of mint struck, and the tall figure jumped out of the road. Li Xiu's thin lips were tightened and his eyes were filled with heat. Adu's short legs followed his tail and he swung wildly. He held her arm with his big hand and high-temperature current rushed straight to the bottom of his heart. "Qingqing. You didn't reply to the message about my appointment. Black Shadow Tail follow me and follow Banxiang." Detective Zhao Kai eavesdrops on the club's review. His voice was as sonorous as the sound of a sword. Hot sweat mixed with mint hit her nose. Her face was red and her ears were hot, and she couldn't shake away the lingering warmth on her fingertips, and her heart was numb. The sweet collision of ambiguous currents, a stronger grip in the crisis. Xiaobai fucked Li Xiu's legs and moaned happily. Adu licked each other's tails. The rustling entangled with milk and mint blended together. The three of them were sprinting with arrows. Xiaobai took the lead and sniffed the glue-smelling track. The golden retriever barked upside down and barked at the navigation. She roared, "Humanity's blind spot is reversed. Their data network leaks emotional ropes." Li Xiu locked eyes with the torch. "Yes. The iron triangle has a tacit understanding. At me, and the four-man sword formation will wrap around the wolf's neck." Footsteps were tapping against the stone slabs and war drums were beating. Passers-by's eyes widened and they whispered, "Captain saving the beauty late at night?" The introverted girl chases ghosts with a red face, and the golden retriever corgi and the two beasts join forces, and the city's #1 middle school is over. The rusty iron door of the abandoned warehouse at the end of the fork in the road creaks, and a black shadow rushes in when the door is opened. The smell of smoke is as thick as fog. The three of her slam the door open and use the light to scan the inside. The tall, thin spy, the blue-haired bald partner snickers around the table, and the data paper is spread out with dense red lines and projections flickering. The club is reviewing the complete record of Sword of Humanity. The introverted girl is on fire at the bottom of the valley, the iron triangle attacks the blind spot, and Brother Xiaokai's data is crushing him to death. The blue-haired man laughs like a snake spitting out letters, and the steamer with the smell of glue hits his face with sultry heat. Xiaobai violently slammed the door with his claws, making the iron sheet buzz, and Li Xiu smashed the door with his iron fist, making a loud bang. The rats from #1 in the city. The eavesdropping conspiracy has been exposed, and the school rules are irrefutable. She roared with a choke in her throat. Emotional cause and effect are reversed. Your zero-sum perspective is shattered. The spy's face turned pale, his eyes widened and trembling. Why, chasing? The golden retriever has a perverted sense of smell. The bald friend's legs were weak and he fell on the bench with a creak. The data papers were scattered like snow. The students watching outside the street lamp were whispering, "The introverted girl leads the team to destroy the conspiracy?" The captain punched the door with a loud bang, the pet duo barked, and the butcher team was scared to death. The iron door opened and Fu Han's figure emerged from the iron tower. The coffee was bitter and his breath was like gun smoke. His leather shoes knocked on the ground and there was an earthquake. His big hands and iron pliers pinched the spy's shoulder bones and creaked. Fu Han is here, rat detective on the eve of the inter-school night. The recording is irrefutable and is reported to the newspaper. Alliance. Zhao Kai and the others are warned to withdraw from the competition. If you do it again, your dream of winning the championship will be shattered. The spies fled in panic with faces as green as vegetables, and followed her like defeated dogs with the smell of glue and smoke. Fu Han's iron face turned soft and his eyes locked on her. Qingqing, the crisis is resolved. From the bottom of the valley, your Qingqing trump card shakes my old heart. The iron guard transforms, and the human sword becomes. Li Xiumin's hot palm slapped her shoulder, and the electric current flowed sweetly. Perfect counterattack, practice more late. Xiaobai jumped, arched his legs and swung his tail. They exchanged milk-flavored carnival, and passers-by in the alleyway screamed and admired. The teacher's iron pliers scare the soul. Introverted girl's first achievement, a campus legend. Her heart was as warm as fire, her self-respect was a strong bond, and her silver bracelets jingled and jingled. On the eve of the inter-school competition, the debate club was brightly lit like a battlefield, the chalk-grey coffee was bitter and sultry, and the auditorium was packed with thousands of students buzzing and whispering like bees. The new Iron Guard is chasing the conspiracy? Zhao Kai, the rat, warned that the winning rate was reversed. But the data wolf continues to dominate, and the data grid is dead. Fu Han stood on the platform of the iron tower, his leather shoes tapping on the ground in a steady rhythm. For public practice, Shen Qingqing singled out 3 people to imitate butchers. Her legs were as soft as cotton and she came on the stage. Her gold and silver overlapping heart-shaped pink crystals shimmered on her bracelet. Her little white short legs followed her claws and clicked against the wooden platform. Zhao Kai simulated a tall and thin club member, leaning forward with wolf eyes, and the red line of the data projection skyrocketed and fired machine guns. Love cancer. 40% dropped out of school, 99% suffered from dependence. The whole audience gasped and the girls screamed at the bottom. Another collapse? The bottom girl's throat is stuck. Her throat was grinding with sandpaper, her words stuck when she opened her mouth and her brain flashed and she replayed the iron triangle attack all night long. Li Xiu's eyes were filled with worry and heat. Luo Li's ponytail flicked in the wind and bit her lip. Chen Feng fisted his bones and growled. Despair was overwhelming like a mountain avalanche. She deeply inhaled the faint fragrance of osmanthus and said, "The opposite is true. Love is not a poison, it is an antidote to stress." The voice trembled at first and then thundered, and the argument came out. The data is reversed in cause and effect. Pressure causes dropout, not emotion. Supporting the comeback, MVP proves that newcomers' resistance to pressure has soared by 200%. She threw out the blue line of the data paper and the projection flashed, and the human rope was tied around the wolf's neck. The case proves that the collapse rate of loveless isolation is higher, and your zero-sum blind spot ignores the campus bond. The simulated wolf's eyes widened and trembled. How? Reversely cut the blind spot. The data network leaked. The silence in the audience turned to screams, and Luo Li's horse tail ran away. The people on the starting table screamed, "Qingqing!" The sword of humanity is tempered and exploded. Chen Feng punched the air with his fists and roared, the iron triangle's tacit understanding of the round attack, the butcher smashed. Li Xiu's eyes were as gentle as a torch, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised with worry. Perfect, the trump card is shocking. The audience whispered, the introvert girl reversed? The blue line of the projection skyrocketed, and the wolf model was stunned. The inter-school MVP was booked. Fu Han smiled with a smile on his face, steaming from the coffee cup. Tai Wei Cheng, the crisis is real. Xiaobai jumped excitedly and swung his short legs with a spring tail, tapping the stage with his claws and dancing to a rhythm, and Adu squatted on the side and twirled his tail wildly to give each other a milky mint carnival. After the perfect practice, she was buzzing with admiration, her heartbeat was pounding, her vision was blurred. Li Xiu's tall figure was approaching, the coolness of mint hit her face in the heat wave. He squatted down and gently held her hand. The high-temperature electric current exploded the fireworks. Qingqing, tonight your sword is so powerful. The ambiguous feelings lingered on her fingertips like an electric grid. She blushed, and burned her ears and bit her lip in hesitation. Ink spots on the love letter under the pillow flashed in her mind. Her self-esteem collided with misunderstandings and she was confused. The crisis is resolved. Is it time? Luo Li and Chen Feng came to the iron triangle for a hug. Her gold and silver-pink crystal bracelets jingled and jingled together. Luo Li's fragrant wind swept her face and her ponytail flicked, the queen's transformation. The ancestral bond has witnessed its peak. Chen Feng smashed his shoulders with passion and made a muffled sound. The suspicions are burned out, and the inter-school wolf is being abused. A passerby girl stared wide-eyed and screamed, ambiguous handshake and red face? The iron triangle hug is blinding, pet. Dance to celebrate the mythical beast. She took a deep breath of courage, took out the pink heart-shaped love letter from her pocket and the osmanthus-scented ink was still wet, and handed it out with trembling hands. Li Xiu read it. His thin lips slightly raised, his eyes were as gentle as spring water, and he smiled and put his fingertips away to touch the aftertaste of the electricity. Qingqing, I will. Without an immediate response, the tension in her heart was stretched, and sweet fear intertwined with the edge of self-esteem and heartbreak. Xiaobai jumps with her legs and arches the end of the letter, shaking and jumping excitedly, licking the bracelet with silver tongue and wrapped in sweet-scented osmanthus, and Adu licking each other in a carnival. Fu Han's iron voice sounded, the school lights are on, the iron guards are on stage. The lights in the huge hall of the arena burst out brightly like a sea of stars pouring down, thousands of colorful flags snapped, the popcorn was sweet and sweaty, the smelly lawn mud was wet, and the whole place was buzzing and whispering, conspiracy to destroy the newcomer nation? Zhao Kai warned me to lower my head, but the data wolf still dares? She stood on the debate platform with creaking wooden boards and her heart beat like a war drum. The wound on her arm was burning but warmth flowed through her. Xiaobai crouched beside her and patted her paws to protect her, and the jingling rhythm of her bracelets was unbreakable. Li Xiu's eyes were locked in the audience, his love letter was hot in his pocket. Luo Li and Chen Feng raised their fists and roared with blood, and Fu Han's coffee curled up against the wall of the iron tower. The whistle was piercing, and Zhao Kai's tall and thin figure came on stage, with sinister eyes and the smell of smoke oozing out, and the edict was long and taunting: the inter-school war has begun, and the data is irrefutable to crush the introverted girl. The whole audience gasped, her throat was numb, and her self-esteem transformation exploded in the blurred vision. The voice of her heart was about to be unsheathed like a sword, reversing the miracle of youth. The whistle sounded like a sharp knife blasting through the air. The lights in the huge hall were dazzling like 1,000 swords piercing the heart. The colorful flags snapped and whipped the air, and the sweet and greasy smell of popcorn mixed with the stench of sweat and wet lawn assaulted your nostrils, as strong as the sultry nightmare of youth. Thousands of students hummed and whispered like a beehive boiling, their gazes shot like arrows towards the wooden platform. She stepped onto the creaking debate platform with slightly trembling legs, her gold and silver-pink crystal bracelets jingled over each other, and her heart beat like a drum beating against her chest. Xiaobai's golden fur shone like a little sun in the shadow of the lamp while squatting under the stage. She squatted slightly with her short legs and tapped her paws on the floor in rhythm. Her pink tongue slightly spit out the fragrance of milk, as if an invisible force rushed into the warmth of her palms. The burning of her arm wounds instantly turned into a burning flame of self-esteem. The opponent, 3 boys from the city's number 2 middle school, rushed onto the stage. The leader's chubby face was slick with oil and he was shouting. The red line of the data projection skyrocketed like a machine gun. Love is pure poison. The dropout rate soared 40%, dependence collapsed 99%, introversion the girl's data is blind, and the evidence is overwhelming. The whole audience gasped, the girl screamed and the buzz spread. Luo Li flicked her ponytail and bit her lip and growled. Chen Feng's fists clenched his bones, and Li Xiu's mint-like eyes locked in the audience and filled with worry. Zhao Kai's tall and thin figure leaned against the auditorium, eyes flashing sinisterly, the smell of cigarette glue oozing out, the corners of his mouth raised up in a mocking arc, whispering to the people around him, the newcomers are on fire at the bottom of the valley, the data grid is dead, even the tyrants are laughing. Despair is like an ice hook pulling at her throat and grinding sandpaper. Her mind flashes to the embarrassment of chasing shadows in the alleys and warehouses, practicing blue line reversals, taking a deep breath and the faint scent of osman thus fragrant in her nose, can't collapse. The opposite side starts. Her voice trembled at first and then exploded like thunder, and the argument came straight out, the data is reversed. Stress is not a cancer, it is not an emotional cancer, the bond is reversed, and the MVP rookie's pressure resistance surges by 200%. The blue line projection flickered in reverse like an electric snake dancing wildly, and the rope of humanity was fiercely tied to the red net. Contrary evidence from the campus case, lovelessness, isolation, and collapse are higher. You have zero-sum blind spots and leaked emotional relief. The fat leader's eyes were round and his fat face was pale and trembling. The data paper fell to the ground. Why? The reverse is so fast. The blind spots are leaking. The partners' legs were soft and squeaked against each other, and the steamer was filled with stinky sweat and stuffy heat. There was a deathly silence in the audience and a wave of screams erupted. Luo Li threw her ponytail into the wind and screamed, Qingqing sword tempering God. The first round of abuse. Chen Feng punched the air with a passionate fist and roared, Iron Triangle wheel attack warms up, the data is smashed. Li Xiu slightly raised the mint heat wave eye torch at the corner of his mouth, perfect start. The audience murmured, inside Chiang Mai was crushed easily? The blue line skyrocketed, and the second pig in the city was scared to death. MVP reservation. Fu Han's iron-faced coffee curled bitterly, the progress is rising, the iron guard is shining. Xiaobai's short legs jumped into the air and his tail whirled wildly, his claws beat the rhythm of the dance, and the milky fragrance was injected into the table. At the end of the first round, colorful flags snapped in celebration. She stepped off the stage with legs as soft as cotton but with a surging heart, and her bracelets jingled and jingled. Little white arrows fluttered against her legs, her hot pink tongue licked her palms, and the salty, sweet, and milky fragrance encouraged her courage. Luo Li and Chen Feng rushed to embrace the overlapping gold and silver-pink crystals and twinkling stars. Li Xiu's tall figure approached her and the cool mint and sweat hit her face. He gently held her arm and the electric current flowed sweetly through her heart. Tacit understanding, see you in the break. The girls on the street widened their eyes and screamed, the iron triangle hugs and blinds. The captain shakes his arm and blushes, the pet jumps to celebrate the beast, the campus legend. Zhao Kai's wolf eyes darkened and he shrunk at the table, while the spy's blue-haired bald head in the far corner of his face turned green and whispered, the data is collapsing, the newcomer's sword is glowing, the crisis of consecutive hegemony. The light in the lounge is dim and soft, the bitter coffee mixed with the fragrance of osmanthus and ink is filled with sultry heat. She is panting and leaning against the wall with a hot love letter hanging in her heart. Li Xiu opens the door and stretches the shadow of the lamp. His tall profile and thin lips are slightly pursed, and his eyes are as gentle as spring water. Adu's short legs followed his tail and whirled in the wind. He knelt down and handed out a pink heart-shaped letter. The osmanthus ink was still wet with ink writing on the edge, waiting for your answer on the stage. The fingertips touched the electric current and exploded fireworks. She blushed and burned her ears, bit her lip and hesitated, feeling confused, ambiguous feelings colliding with self-esteem and misunderstanding. The answer on the stage? Public after reversal? Li Xiu. With a lump in his throat, he patted his shoulder with his mint-heated palm. Qingqing, the sword is unsheathed, I believe it. Adu arched his legs and moaned, and Xiaobai licked each other's milk and mint to mingle and revel. Luo Li's ponytail swung in the wind, Queen. The bracelet flashes, come on, half fight to torture the Confucians. Chen Feng banged the door with passion, the tacit understanding of the round attack is burned, and the doubts are blown away. The gold and silver pink crystal bracelet jingled and embraced the iron triangle to be unbreakable. Passers-by in the room widened their eyes and whispered, confession letters are exchanged? The answer explodes on the stage, the ambiguous electric current is sweet. The whistle for the semifinals was piercing again, the lights in the hall were as bright as a sea of stars, the colorful flag-hunting whip whipped the air even harder, and thousands of buzzing voices echoed, semifinal against a powerful enemy. The three talented scholars in the city have won 5 games in a row with all the heroes, and the introverted girl is at the bottom and trying again? She stepped on the wooden platform and her heart beat like a deer. Under the white platform, the blonde's upside-down talons clicked like war drums, and the fragrance of milk suppressed the panic. The opponent Sanru came on stage. The leader's tall and thin glasses were reflective and messy. The red and black data projections were intertwined like a poisonous net. The machine gun fired the argument, fantasy of love. Brain science proves that it relies on atrophic nerves, dropouts rely on double kills of 99.9%, the data is ironclad, and the blind spots of newcomers are shattered. Partners work together. The sound was like a pack of wolves spitting messages, and the red threads were densely packed with blueprints. The whole audience gasped and screamed at the top of their lungs. Luo Li bit her lip and ponytail and stopped stiff. Chen Feng pinched the veins with his fists. Li Xiu's eyes were filled with worry and heat. Fu Han's coffee cup was clenched tightly, and Zhao Kai's sinister smile stretched out in the seat. The wolf is crushed. The consecutive victory is stable. Her throat was as dry as fire, and her mind was replaying the flash of human swords all night long. The figure was blurred and the mountain of despair overwhelmed her. She took a deep breath of the fragrance of the little white milk and the phantom power rushed through her body. Counterattack. The voice was as sonorous as the sound of a sword and exploded in the hall. A round of arguments broke out. Brain science is contrary to evidence. Emotional bonds activate nerves. MVP's stress resistance soared by 300%, and stress atrophy is even higher. The blue line is reversed. The projection electric snake devours the red and black poisonous network, the iron triangle of cases. The crisis shadow chasing link is overturned. You are a bunch of zero-minded people and ignore the campus decompression rope. The tall and thin glasses trembled like pieces with round glasses, and the data paper was thrown out to bite back on itself. Blind zone human rope? Nervous atrophy reverses. The partners' legs were weak and they pushed each other and fell. The stools creaked continuously, and the smell of sweat and glue was as strong as a defeated army. Steamer, tall and thin, his throat was choked with sobs and his face was livid and contorted with regret. How can you miss the emotional cause and effect? Won 5 games in a row, broken. The whole place turned into a roaring scream for 3 seconds, and the audience exploded like a volcano. The introverted girl narrowly defeated the crowd of scholars with tongues. The blue line net-eating sword, the scholar wolf was so scared that his legs were weak. Reversal of miracle MVP. Luo Li threw her ponytail wildly on the edge of the stage and screamed with tears. Queen Qingqing's sword exploded. Witness the ancestral bond of the iron triangle. Chen Feng leapt up with passion and punched the railing, shouting loudly, tacitly attack the Confucians, burn everything. Li Xiu was eyes locked with the torch, and the corner of his mouth raised an arc of pride, the answer on the stage. Get ready. Fu Han stood in front of the Iron Tower and laughed loudly. The Iron Guard has transformed to its peak, and the sword of humanity has been tempered. The scholar wolf was defeated and stepped down. The tall and thin man helped his partner to stagger and look embarrassed. His face was as green as a vegetable and he murmured regretfully, I missed the blind spot. The newbie has become a dragon at the bottom of the valley, and his dream of winning the championship is shattered. Passers-by in the hall paid homage to the crowd, and the girls screamed and waved their hands, Qingqing goddess. The pet's power-transmitting claws beat the war drum. Blue line, the miracle is blinding. The campus legend will be passed down forever. The boy's eyes widened and he roared. The disciples were fighting with each other. Their legs were weak and they fell on the bench. Their faces turned green in despair, and they worshipped the Iron Guard. Xiaobai jumped wildly with his short-legged spring-tail and fluttered into the air. His claws slapped on the stage, and he danced in a milk-scented carnival, and ado twirled each other far away from the stage. Zhao Kai's wolf eyes were the epitome of evil, and the stench of smoke and glue dissipated. The spy with blue hair and bald head fled away with a pale face, whispering, the wolf is broken. Successive victory in the finals? Crisis. At night, the lights in the dormitory are dim and warm, and the fragrance of osmanthus ink fills the pillow. She collapses on the bed, her heart is not calm, her bracelets jingle softly. Xiaobai curls up her legs, arches her breasts, and licks the remaining pages of the letter. The salty, sweet, and milky fragrance of the osmanthus ink blends, and her short legs beat the paper and moan like a victory. The little white protruding ears turned around and barked, and the mobile phone buzzed and vibrated. The final opponent was announced. The screen flickered. Zhao Kai, the #1 middle school student in the city, a genius data wolf and a longtime rival, bowed his head for revenge after his conspiracy was exposed. The whole school was buzzing, the genius of our old enemy in the finals. Zhao Kai lowered his head in warning with wolf eyes, but he fought against the Iron Guard? How can a miracle of reversal be staged? Luo Li's message with a ponytail expression wildly flicked, the queen is preparing for battle. The ancestral bond is to torture the wolf. Chen Feng's passionate fist, round attack to kill. Li Xiu Mint's avatar is gentle, the answer on the stage is waiting for your sword. Her heartbeat is pounding, her vision is blurred, her arm is injured and her self-esteem is bursting. The remaining pages of the love letter are licked clean, and the fragrance of osmanthus milk encourages courage. The final sword comes out, the peak of youthful transformation. Fu Han's iron voice sounded at night, Iron Guard, the final lights are on. Zhao Kai's data wolf is reviewing the blind spot, and the crisis is real. She clenched her fists and roared, the night wind outside the window rustled the sycamores, her little white tail flicked to protect her, and the pink crystals on her bracelet twinkled in the stars. The streetlights buzz intermittently, the lingering shadows of glue in the far alleys flicker like will-o'-the-wisps, self-esteem collides with misunderstandings and heartbreak is on the verge of rekindling. The old enemy, the genius, is about to turn around and explode. The remaining heat in the hall has not dissipated, and the audience is murmuring, the introverted girl is a semi-rebellion, the wolf is desperate and dreams are broken, and the wolf-slaying legend is born in the final. She took a deep breath of the sour night dew, and the blue lines in her mind soared. The sword of humanity was intertwined, sweetness and fear were intertwined, and the answer on the stage was ready to go. The yellow halo of the dormitory lights is slowly pouring like honey, the sycamore leaves outside the window are whispering and the night breeze is caressing, the sour dew seeps into the gauze curtains, and the smell of residual glue in the far alley disappears like a ghost. She sat slumped on the edge of the bed, the peripheral light of the mobile phone screen flickered, Zhao Kai's wolf-eyed head was elongated, and a huge boulder was falling heavily in her heart. The final enemy, the data wolf, had a blind spot for revenge, and the iron net of consecutive hegemons was about to fall. How can the bottom of introversion rival the peak of genius? Xiaobai curled up her legs and arched her chest as close as a warm golden hair pillow. He gently licked her palms with his pink tongue, and the salty, sweet, and milky fragrance slowly penetrated into her meridians. His short legs lightly tapped the edge of the bed and the rhythm was synchronized with her heartbeat, as if whispering, "Master, the sword is immortal." The whole school group was buzzing, and messages from passers-by were pouring in. The semi-final god rebelled against the Confucian wolf. The blue line eats the net and his legs are weak and throws the stool. The introverted Iron Guard MVP is booked, the legend of beating Zhao Kai in the finals. Luo Li's ponytail head flicked wildly, the queen prepares to fight for the ancestral bond, wolf bones. Chen Feng's fist expression exploded, the round attack will kill and burn it all. She took a deep breath to suppress the panic, the residual heat of her arm injury simmered with self-esteem, but her throat was choked with sobs and she laughed at herself. The simulated blind spot leaked, the answer to the love letter on the stage was hot, and the public self-esteem was on the verge of being shattered? There was a soft knock on the door, Li Xiu's tall figure pushed into the lamp and the shadow lengthened, Adu's short legs followed his tail and blew in the wind, refreshing the mint and mixing with the fragrance of milk to party. The little white arrows licked each other's pink tongues, and the dormitory suddenly turned into a small universe of joy. His thin lips pursed slightly, his eyes locked with a gentle torch, and the blue line projection pen in his hand flashed cold light, simulating all night long. Zhao Kai's data wolf reviewed the blind spots of human nature, and the crisis was approaching. Her legs went weak, and her body and mind were in a panic. The remaining pages of the love letter were still hot on the pillow, and the sweet-scented osmanthus ink, waiting for your answer on the stage, was like the aftertaste of electricity that filled her heart. Ambiguous misunderstandings and self-esteem collided. How to speak? Passers-by and girls all over the room peeked out of the far window and whispered, "Captain raiding the dormitory at night?" Mint heatwave love letters are electric. Iron Guard's red face is so sweet. Do you have a tacit understanding to increase the number before the final? Luo Li and Chen Feng's message rushed in. The iron triangle is burning all night long. The white light of the desk lamp is dazzling, the blue and red projection lines are intertwined like a sword net dancing wildly, and the bitterness of coffee is filled with the attached file of Fu Han's night news. She and Li Xiu were sitting across from each other, touching each other's knees, and the electric current was flowing sweetly. Adu and Xiaobai lay on each other's feet, tapping their paws to warm up the war drum, and the fragrance of milk and mint blended into the warmth of the steamer. At the beginning of the simulation, her voice trembled as she first came up with her argument. Emotional ties soared under pressure. Li Xiu's wolf eyes simulated Zhao Kai's sinister elongation, and the data red line skyrocketed and the machine gun scanned. Human nature is broken in the blind area. Nervous atrophy is irrefutable, 99.9% of dropouts. The blue line was almost eaten by the internet. Her mind flashed in the alley, chasing shadows in the warehouse, and the semi-finalist wolf's legs were weak and the face was green in despair, and the sandpaper in the throat was abrasive and desperate. It was missed. The little white protruding ears and short legs jumped on the table and the claws clicked wildly. The fragrance of milk poured into the palm of the hand, and her sword light exploded. Contrary evidence. The bond activates the nerves, and the iron triangle case is overturned by 300%. The blue line electric snake bites red, and Li Xiu simulates a wolf's eyes and rounded thin lips. Trembling, the blind spot is retrieved. The dream of consecutive champions is broken. He leaned back with his tall body and the shadow of the lamp swayed, his eyes turned proud and gentle, the perfect backlash, the tacit understanding burned all night long. Adu's tail whirled, and Xiaobai excitedly slapped his legs and licked Qingqing's milky milk in a carnival. All night long, as the sky outside the window gradually turned white, dewdrops rolled down the sycamore trees, her arms ached, and her heart surged. The campus was boiling with the aftermath of her fame. Students under the street lights whispered, the Iron Guard simulated the shadow of a wolf all night long, and the MVP status is guaranteed. At dawn, the Fu Han Iron Tower stands in the campus playground, and the coffee cup squeaks tightly with the bitter smell of morning mist and wet earth. His iron face had few soft openings, and his voice sounded like a bell. Iron Guard, the ultimate skill, open your heart to the sword. Zhao Kai's blind spots are reviewed by the data wolf, and his emotions are exposed to the internet. Her heartbeat hit the edge of self-esteem and misunderstanding in the love letter, and she practiced speaking. Love is not poison, but a bond. After the first tremble of the voice, it was sonorous. Fu Han Chiatar nodded and smiled. The valley rises to the top. Peak, the sword of humanity is endless. Xiaobai followed the short legs and tapped the ground. The fragrance of milk puffed up the mist, and the morning exercise students around them opened their eyes and shouted, "Teacher personally taught Iron Guard?" Han Xiao revealed his heart, the magic skill of slaying wolves in the finals. Worship the MVP. Luo Li's ponytail jumped out to embrace the gold and silver pink crystal bracelet and jingled, the queen predicts victory. The ancestral bond torches the grey. Chen Feng pounded his shoulders with a dull sound, share your thoughts and fight to the death. The iron triangle sat around the bench, the sycamores rustled in the morning breeze, and Luo Li's ponytail flicked with tears. Qingqing, from the bottom of the lonely valley to the semi-rebellion, the bonds of friendship have witnessed your self-esteem transformation. Chen Feng squeezed the veins and roared with blood, I'll smash the wolf when there's a crisis in the alley. Now in the finals, all my supporters have burned out. Li Xiu looked at Mint and locked eyes with Gentleman. I'll wait for the answer on the stage. Her face was red and her ears were burning. The bracelets were overlapped and made them unbreakable. The friendship gained was heartwarming. The whole school responded. The Iron Triangle shared their thoughts publicly. The bracelets have been upgraded to Galaxy Flash, MVP Friendship Legend. The campus is boiling like the embers of a volcano. Colorful flags on the bulletin board are hunting and snapping. Students are buzzing around and projecting the miracle of the semifinal blue line. Introverted Iron Guards torture pigs and slaughter people. legs are broken and dreams are broken. Finals vs Zhao Kai Data Wolf, Reverse Miracle MVP. Girls scream and wave their rings. Qingqing Goddess Pet Power Transmission Claws beat the war drum. Blue line bites the net and the campus will be passed on forever. The boys widened their eyes in admiration. The Sword of Humanity is a newcomer who has become a dragon at the bottom of the valley, and his status has reached the captain. Detective Zhao Kai, a blue-haired bald man with a green face in the far corner, whispered, "Wolf Eye's blind spot of revenge, crisis." She walked through the corridor and people paid homage to her. The fruit of her fame was as sweet as honey, her status throne was faintly taking shape, and her bracelets jingled like a crown. In the afternoon, Little White's protruding short legs pulled at the corner of her skirt and whined wildly, tapping her paws on the floor in a rapid rhythm, and the scent of milk urged her to go out for a walk. She followed with a warm smile in her heart. The smell of wet mud from the playground lawn and the sweetness of popcorn hit her face, and the dazzling sunlight sprinkled the golden retriever shining like a little sun. Unexpectedly turning a corner, Li Xiu's tall figure leaned against a tree, Adu's short legs arched against each other, a small white arrow shot at the milk and mint carnival. 3 people and a dog were swimming together on a grassy path, and the shadows of the sycamore trees were mottled and the shadows of the lamps were ambiguous and elongated. He touched her face with the coolness of mint in the heat of sweat, and gently held her hand, and the sweet current flowed through her heart, a walk to relieve stress, a tacit understanding before the finals. She blushed and her self-esteem collided with the edge of misunderstanding, and her love letter secret choked her throat. Li Xiu, the answer on the stage is. Before the words came out, the little white Adu licked each other's pink tongues, and the heat flowed through her. Luo Li and Chen Feng shouted from afar, and hot blood rushed to her ponytail. Iron, for corners tour. Emotion sublimated and tortured the wolf. The girls in the audience widened their eyes and screamed. The captain shakes hands with the 3 dogs and is blinded. The scent of mint milk is ambiguous and electric, and the secret of the love letter is so sweet. The emotional bonds supplements and misunderstandings turn into fireworks. She takes a deep breath and the fragrance of osmanthus ink is swaying, and she is ready to win. She is sure to win. The afterglow of the setting sun dyed the arches of the giant hall red, and colorful flags and hunting whips were used to warm up the air. Thousands of students were buzzing around the peaks and crowds of people, the pinnacle of the finals. Iron Guard vs Data Wolf, the blue line sword will bite the consecutive champions? Fu Han's coffee on the terrace of the Iron Tower bitterly curled, and the sound of iron exploded in the hall. Zhao Kai from the number 1 middle school of the city, and Shen Qingqing from the opposite side. Zhao Kai's tall and thin wolf figure ran across the stage. The reflection of the glasses was elongated, and the odor of cigarette glue oozed out. The red line of the data projection soared like a poisonous dragon. The blind spot of the newbie is broken. The irrefutable evidence of atrophy of love nerves. Drop out of school for double murder and revenge. The wolf pack of friends spat out letters on the internet, and the audience gasped and screamed. Luo Li bit her lip and ponytail stiffened. Chen Feng pinched the veins, and Li Xiumin's eyes were filled with worry. Her legs trembled slightly as she stepped onto the creaking wooden platform. Her heart beat loudly and war drums thumped. Her bracelets of gold and silver pink crystal jingled solidly, and the golden hair's inverted vertical talons clicked like a thunderous navigation under the small white platform. The fragrance of milk pressed against the ice hook of despair. Her throat was dry and burning, and her mind spent the whole night simulating Fu Han's final public voice, the sharing of the iron triangle, the emotional sublimation of the walk. The love letter was hot, and her self-esteem exploded. She took a deep suck of the fragrant and warm flow of milk, opened the other side. The sonorous sound of the sword exploded in the hall, and the argument attack broke out. Data cause and effect are reversed. Emotional bonds activate nerves to withstand stress by 400%, and the iron triangle campus case is turned around. The blue line projection electric snake dances wildly and eats the red poisonous dragon. Zhao Kai's blind spot leaked the public voice to unzip the rope. You consecutively defeated Zero and ignored human nature. Zhao Kai's wolf-eyed glasses shattered and trembled. The data paper slipped and rustled. His face turned green and his throat choked. Blind, public voice backfired? The dream of revenge, shattered. The legs of the partners collided with each other and they fell to the bench, and the smell of sweat and glue was strong in the defeated army's steamer. Dead silence turned to roaring screams in the audience, and the audience's volcano erupted. The Iron Guards publicly expressed their hearts and swords. The blue line wolf-eating miracle. Zhao Kai was so scared that his legs were weak and the MVP will be passed down forever. Luo Li threw her ponytail on the stage and shed tears. The queen's ancestral bond is victorious. The prophecy came true. Chen Feng pounded his fists with blood. The round attack will kill Hua Ash. Li Xiu's mouth curled up with mint torches proudly. The answer on the stage is perfect. Fu Han Chita laughed loudly. The peak of transformation, the sword of humanity. The whistle blew sharply across the sky, and the colorful flags snapped in celebration. She stepped off the stage, her legs soft and her heart filled with emotion. Xiaobai fluttered her legs with pink tongue and licked the scent of milk in a carnival. Adu exchanged sweet mints with each other. Li Xiu hugged her and her heart was filled with electricity. Qingqing, the answer is public, I love you. The love letter secret fireworks exploded, and passers-by screamed and worshipped. Love responds to the fruits of victory. The campus legend is complete. Introverted transformation transforms into a confident queen. Zhao Kai muttered with her embarrassed face, the blind spot is revealed. The consecutive champion's dream is shattered. The whole hall paid tribute. The reputation, status, and throne were all taken away. The bracelets were shining forever, and the miracle of youth was at its peak. The night wind rustles the sycamore trees, and the little white tail flicks to guard. The sweet fear is released to the extreme. The night wind caressed the square outside the arch of the giant hall like silk. The rustling of sycamore leaves mixed with the popping of colorful flags. The lingering warmth of victory filled the air with the sweet mist of milk and mint. The sea of lights of thousands of students surged like a star river, and the screams hit the night like a tide. Iron Guard's MVP. Blue Line, the sword-eating wolf, reveals her heart, and the transformation of the introverted queen is passed on to the campus forever. Her legs were weak and she leaned against Li Xiu's tall chest, and the electric current rushed through her heart. The pink heart-shaped love letter with osmanthus ink was still as hot as an ember in the palm of her hand. The three-character, I love, fireworks bloomed at the edge of her self-esteem, and the ice hook of fear melted and exploded with warm currents. Little White's short-legged spring body embraces her pink tongue and licks the corner of her skirt. The fragrance of milk splashes wildly. Adu's tails whirring against each other and the refreshing mint hits their nostrils. The silhouettes of a pair of three dogs are elongated and the shadows are ambiguous, and the girls on the street widen their eyes and scream and cover their chests. The captain confesses openly and embraces the electric current to blind him. The love letter is so complete and sweet, and the Iron Guard's love fruit MVP is crowned. The boy bangs his fist and roars in worship. From being lonely at the bottom to abusing wolves at the top, pets are legendary guardians. Luo Li's ponytail wildly swung, tears streaming down her face, and she hugged her gold and silver pink crystal bracelets, jingling and ringing as they hit Tai Jiu. The queen's ancestral bond prediction has come true. From the lonely crying at the parent-teacher conference to the public confession of your heart in the finals, your transformation of self-esteem has blinded the whole school. Chen Feng leapt up with passion and punched her shoulder with a vein popping out, making a thunderous sound. Kill and burn Zhao Kai. The wolf backup has been smashed in the alley, and the iron triangle will be burned forever. Fu Han's figure slowly stepped closer to the coffee cup, and the bitterness curled up in the wet soil of the night. His iron face was rarely cracked and the gap was as deep as the canyon. The sound of the bell shook the square. Shen Qingqing, the sword of humanity rises from the bottom of the canyon. The voice of the public is not a blind spot, it is tempered by the gods. Peak, MVP Iron Guard Campus Immortal. He patted her shoulder with an iron palm, which was so heavy that it sent warmth into her bones. The students around her gasped and whispered with their eyes wide open. The teacher laughed so hard that it split the sky. He personally taught the transformation and recognized it, and the Iron Guard's status and throne are as stable as Mount Tai. Zhao Kai's tall and thin body shivered in an awkward miniature, and shattered glasses fell to the ground. The smell of cigarette smoke oozed with sweat, and he murmured with sobs in his throat, publicly, the backlash breaks the dreams of the consecutive tyrants, and the blind spot of humanity is broken. A pack of blue-haired bald-faced green-legged wolves staggered to each other, and passers-by laughed at each other. The carnival in the square was like the embers of a volcano, and the crowd of students gathered around and projected the afterglow of the blue line Excalibur and the red poisonous dragon. Her heart was surging, her arms were injured, her old self-esteem was like a phoenix rising from the ashes, but her throat was suddenly astringent. Her parents sighed and the lonely figure flashed in her mind. Her mother's apron was filled with tears, and her father's work boots were rough on the palms of his hands. At that time, how could the Qing dynasty defeat the wolves on campus? Now that the fruits are in hand, self-esteem collides and misunderstandings evaporate, how can we repay it? Little Bia stood up and noticed that the short-legged skirt was whining and the fragrance of milk was stimulating her nose. Adu's tail was swirling to follow the warmth of mint. Li Xiu's thin lips were whispering into his ear and his eyes were locked with the torch. The answer is perfect, parents will witness the growth. She nodded and blushed hotly. The iron triangle bracelet twinkled and jingled in front of the leader. Fu Han's iron tower was behind him, and the night breeze rustled the sycamores escorting the school gate. The street lights outside the school gate are dim and the figure is elongated. In the distance, Mom in the apron is fragrant with the smell of vegetable leaves and holding Dad's muddy labor boots squeaking. The parents are waiting in the trembling lights. The whole school group on the mobile phone is buzzing with the aftermath. The parents will be lonely and cry that I am the MVP queen. Mom tears immediately burst into the heat of the apron, Qingqing. From the bottom of the silent valley to the stage to express her feelings, my mother wrongly blamed being lonely. Her father rubbed his eyes with thick hands and choked with the smell of earth. The daughter of a laborer abused the genius wolf, and my father's boots crushed her self-esteem. Her throat was rubbed with sandpaper, tears welled up. After the parent-teacher meeting, Xiaobai's guardianship, the iron triangle bond, Fu Han's sword quenching, the transformation of self-esteem is all here. The parents turned around with eyes wide open to see the little white golden retriever, the little son, with shining paws and the aftertaste of the war drum, and the fragrance of milk poured into the palms. The pet dog is a miracle. Guard. The campus protector confessed and grew into a legend. Passers-by and students returning home at night whispered in admiration. My parents were shocked and burst into tears. The Iron Guard family is perfect, and the fruits of fame are so sweet. Li Xiu's handshake was sweet. Luo Li and Chen Feng embraced the iron triangle, and their bracelets jingled like a crown forever. Returning to the dormitory at night, the street lights are mottled and the shadows of the plane trees are ambiguous. The Iron Triangle and his parents, Li Xiu and Fu Han, are surrounded by laughter. The bitterness of the coffee, milk, mint leaves, and earth blend with the warmth of the steamer. The little white Adu ran forward to lick each other's pink tongues. The hot lawn-wet mud popcorn hit their faces. Luo Li shook her ponytail and smiled with tears. The parents will be lonely until the finals hug, and the friendship bond will witness the Queen's Road. Chen Feng's fist smashed with blood. Burn all the backup, the future university will attack. Fu Han Chita nodded and smiled. The sword of humanity does not stop at the school, it is waiting to be tempered at the peak of the provincial competition. Her parents hugged each other frequently in their aprons, and her mother's vegetable leaves were fragrant. The little white milk is fragrant to protect her, and her mother cooked soup to celebrate her victory. The claws tapped against the stone slab in a rapid rhythm, and the rich fragrance of milk poured into the palms. The afterimage of the dark alley ahead flickered, Xiaobai's wolf eyes elongated and the odor of cigarette smoke was faint. The scraps of data paper fell to the ground, the tall and thin body trembled and murmured, "The blind spot, the revenge is not over yet?" A passerby, a girl returning from the night, screamed and backed away. "The data wolf attacks at night? You dare to lose in the final." Li Xiu's eyes were locked and he stepped forward. His tall figure was ironclad, Adu's short legs were turned upside down and his tail was whistling. Chen Feng pinched the veins with his fists and roared, "Smash the ashes again? The round attack is burning." Luo Li's ponytail was blocked by Fu Han's iron palm, and his parents' aprons stepped back with eyes wide. Her legs trembled slightly, but the sword light exploded. She took a deep breath of the fragrant and warm flow of milk and publicly tempered her heart. "Xiaobai, the blind spot of data is inhumane. Emotional ties are openly decompressed, and your consecutive dominance is broken because you ignored the rope." The sonorous sound of the sword echoed in the night alley. The blue line phantom was eating the red wolf in his mind. Xiaobai's wolf eyes were round and his glasses were shattered and the afterglow was shattered and he was shaking even more fiercely. His face was ashen and his throat was choked with sobs. The paper fell to the ground. Backlash, backlash to despair. He staggered back and ran away with the smell of cigarettes and glue, his tall and thin figure melting. Yi Wu was in despair, and passers-by gasped and yelled, "The Iron Guard is abusing the alley again. The night attack is ashes, MVP's human sword is almighty." The parents and mothers burst into tears in their aprons. "My daughter openly expresses her heart to protect the family, and her growth is miraculous." Li Xiu hugged her tightly and kissed her forehead tenderly. "Perfect protection, I love you forever." The yellow halo of honey pours out from the dormitory. The night breeze caresses the rustle of the parasol trees outside the window, and the sour dewdrops seep through the gauze curtains, and the scent of osmanthus and ink blows. She sat slumped on the edge of the bed, her heart racing like the sea. Her gold and silver pink crystal Luo Li Chen Feng and Li Xiu bracelets were intertwined with each other. Xiaobai curled up her legs and arched her chest. The scent of the golden hair warm pillow slowly seeped into her palms. Adu lay down on her short legs and breathed the aftertaste of mint. The whole school has not yet stopped, and messages from passers-by are pouring in. The Iron Guard in the night alley eats the wolf's shadow again. The parents are shocked and the family is complete, and the MVP love legend is immortal on campus. Luo Li's ponytail head is swung wildly, the four corners of iron and the ancestral bond between parents are sublimated. Chen Feng explodes with fists, the university burns down everything. Li Xiu the mint torch locked, the answer to the provincial competition, together. The earthy message on the parents' apron flowed warmly, "Cook soup to celebrate, and grow up forever." Fu Han's coffee attached, the sword of humanity tempers a new chapter. She sucked the milk deeply and suppressed a slight panic. The geniuses of the provincial competition gathered together, the introverted shadow was faint, and the self-esteem collided with the new edge. The little white pink tongue licked the salty and sweet palm of the palm, her short legs tapped slightly and her heartbeat synchronized, and she whispered, "Master, the sword is immortal." The dazzling morning light sprinkles the little golden retriever sun, the colorful flags on the campus bulletin board snap, the blue line of the newly projected invitation to the provincial competition is the afterglow. Shen Qingqing Taiwei MVP of the city's #1 middle school, waiting for the provincial competition. The students buzzed around and screamed, "The Queen's transformation is endless." The miracle of pet guardian confession, the new peak abuse genius cloud. The girls waved and worshipped, The perfect love bracelet is the galaxy, introverted confidence is blinding. The boys roared, the bond of human nature is open to the public, and the throne of status goes straight to the provincial crown. She walked across the corridor to pay homage to the sweetness of fame, her bracelet jingled the crown, her arm injury and self-esteem exploded into a new torch. Li Xiu stood shoulder to shoulder and shook hands with electricity, answer together. Luo Li and Chen Feng rushed to the ponytail with enthusiasm, Iron Triangle burns the provincial championship. Xiaobai's short legs clicked on the ground, Adu's tail twirled, her parents looked at the dirt on their aprons and burst into tears, and Fu Han nodded and smiled. The playground lawn is wet and muddy, the popcorn is dappled with sunlight, 3 people and a dog are walking on the sandy path again, and the shadows of the sycamore trees are ambiguously elongated. The little white Adu licked each other's milk and mint and caroused, and her inner voice was ready to be revealed, the blind spot of the provincial competition, my sword is quenched. Li Xiu's thin lips tenderly said, I love you, let's fight together. The iron triangle embraces ding dong, the bracelets shine forever, the youthful transformation is not at its peak, and the suspense of the new chapter is like a blue wire electric snake waiting to be eaten, a campus miracle, the protection is sustainable, the ultimate release is an endless warm current. The phoenix trees rustle again in the night wind, and the little white tail flicks to guard, and the sweet future is sure to come. Back home, the lights are dim in the alleys, Xiaobai is curled up on the carpet and breathing flat, and the fragrance of golden retriever milk is strong again. Its watery eyes blinked, its pink tongue licked the palm like a smile, and the image in her brain flashed, handshake electricity, she buried her face in the pillow and groaned, Xiaobai, are you laughing at me? It barked and flicked its tail, arching the corner of the pillow like a reminder, and the fragrance of milk was gentle on her face. The night breeze was cool, and the data paper pressed against the pillow was heavily shadowed. She secretly decided, practice to become a genius. But he had nightmares about Zhao Kai's wolf eyes, the debate stage collapsed and cried, and the whole school laughed at him.